All right.
Yeah.
Jodi Day.
Jodi Day. It's Jodi Day every Tuesday and Saturday at around noon US time and 6 p.m. Swedish time. And we are here and we see our regulars are already in the chat. We have Farrah Housewife, we have Mo, Youngmin, Salvador, Christine, Brit Brat, and the rest of you. Thank you all for. And Gigi is here.
All right.
She survived. They had a bit of a thunderstorm extravaganza tornado in Tornado Alley last night. And Indigo Luna is here, so she survived as well. Good to see you, Indigo. I believe she is Texan, so she might have first-hand information for the rest of the chat.
Nice.
Murph's Turf is here and Reindeer. Yay! Okay.
Very cool.
We are, yeah.
Has anyone said anything to you though, Nicholas? Have they spotted anything at all?
No, but I had a few emails. You need to tell us. So
we're not. Are we telling?
No, but I can. Let me just give a hint and see if they pick up on it.
That was good.
Yeah,
that was good.
Okay, we are on day 5, part 2. We are just over 1 hour in. We are looking at medical examination, more photos of that sort, and it's stacking up on Miss Arias. If you're wondering about the tiny buzzing sound in the background, that is my air cooler on high because it is warm in Sweden.
I don't hear anything. I'm good.
Okay,
all
good.
I hear is a
Great.
washing machine in my background. So
okay, yeah. But so if anyone wonders, that's me trying to have my house and my rooms below 80. So 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's my goal at least. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, people are having their own fans on full, so yeah, they might not notice that I have my air cooler on. Yeah, I have to have air coolers on because we had to rewire all the electricity downstairs, so we still haven't plugged in the AC, which is I really hoped we would have had done before summer, but here we are.
Thanks, Rachel Hope. Something or other. Thank you for being here. Play catch up, and we're welcome to do this and bring it to you every Tuesday and Saturday at noon.
So you get the Jodi Arias trial brought to you with snark, laughs, and legal expertise, and which might separate us from a lot of other true crimers who just sit and watch. Yeah, I'm calling some channels out, but our main competitor seems to have just don't do it. Don't do the Jodi Arias trial anymore. I don't know.
Oh,
and that's the risk when you follow other people than me and David, not in LawTube, we follow through.
That's right.
Because even if it's might be a bit boring, we try to perk it up, but we are also interested on maybe a different level to hear, oh, that's an interesting wording, or that pause was intentional. Some of that stuff. Those things I just enjoy seeing in a trial. And yeah,
me too. And I might have some. I'm gonna try not to comment during the trial. I'm gonna still focus on the evidence. Although I've been reading the book, Convicted, that was written by the prosecutor in this case, and there's a ton of stuff, particularly some evidence that I'm not sure made it into the trial that I'm really hoping did. And I'm waiting for that. If not, maybe we can do like a post-trial. We could talk about some of these things from the book.
Yeah. There are after this you have her appeal.
Yep.
How those went and stuff like that. So we might after the entirety of the trial, we can maybe a few follow-up episodes just going through why what didn't get in, what did get in, and why.
Yeah, no,
a bit of the technicalities and just have fun with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I dressed up nice for Jodi today.
Yeah, that's very nice of you. I just put on the nearest jacket because yesterday was I went on first I had my stream, then I had RC Overlord's stream, and it went about 12 hours of drinking beer and having fun. Nice. So that was fun.
I went on Aussie from about 12:30 midnight or so my time to about 2:30 in the morning, and I was like, okay, I'm done. But and then I jumped down for a little bit. It was a good. I didn't realize he's grifting to come here to the U.S. The first time he's coming here, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. But let's get into this. Get on with it! Yay! Yes, and as usual, I don't mind super chats. I prefer if you become a member, and or like, subscribe. And then third is become a member if you want to support our channels. Yes. David is more greedy. He only asked for super chats.
I only want the super chats. I just want your straight, cold hard money, cash. This is but share the channel. That's most important. Help us both grow. You could share both mine and X. You can watch simultaneously, like I'm doing on both of our channels. Get our numbers up and share it around.
Make the YouTube algorithms pick us up and present us to more people. Yeah, okay, but we are here for Jodi Arias, and we pick up where we left off on Tuesday.
I don't know, sperm, that sort of thing.
Absolutely, yes.
So it isn't just restricted to blood then, right?
That's correct.
So if you swab this particular area and there was no blood, that doesn't mean there wasn't any biological substance.
That's correct.
So to get back to you told me a little bit about your training. In the terms of blood, the way it's deposited there, is that something that you can, by looking at them?
To how the mechanisms that may have caused those stains, yes.
Okay, but I'm asking you, when you look at it, are you able to do it? It's the royal we here, and I want to make sure that we're talking about you. You can look at something and at least tell us what type of pattern we're talking about.
The type of pattern and what may have caused that mechanism.
Are there some patterns that are
There are no subtitles available, I'm afraid.
Okay, why don't we talk a little bit about passive type of patterns that you may find at a crime scene? What are those?
The passive category of bloodstain patterns are ones that when blood droplets are only acted upon by the source of gravity, they form by gravity alone, so they're just dropping by that force alone.
So, for example, if the
Why
source,
am I not
whatever
seeing
the
the
source may
screen?
be, is standing over,
this is
not making any movement.
Oh, that's
blood
right.
comes down, it forms a certain
it's not our stream.
Yes,
It is
passive.
the.
How about if active forms of blood patterns?
It is.
What are those?
It is
Those
the
would be under a
original
category
stream
called
that just
projected
didn't
blood when there is
catch up.
when there is an ejection of a volume of
But
blood
we can still
due to
hear
a
it.
force
It
or
will
pressure
pause
that causes
in a few
that to
minutes,
start
and
to
it's
Give me some
going
examples
full
of what we're
video
talking
again.
about.
That could be when there is an impact or a strike or a blow to a blood source. It could be when there is a weapon that is moving back and forth and blood may be flying off of it. It can be from when one coughs and has blood in their airwaves. That can cause that a projection of blood stains as well.
In terms of the pattern that may be created by this blood being projected, is there a special name for that or not? Is it high velocity, medium velocity? Do you know what that's about?
We can assess the sizes of the stains, and that helps us define the force that might have acted upon that blood, and then we categorize that by the sizes as high velocity, low velocity, medium velocity.
And are you familiar with the term spatter?
Yes, I am.
Not splatter, it's spatter actually.
Spatter.
And what does splatter refer to?
What is spatter?
What does it refer to? Yeah.
Spatter is the actual stains that we look at after there has been an action to a liquid blood source, and the blood droplets fly and are dispersed through the air. When they finally land upon a surface, that is called the spatter.
In terms of, let's say there's blood on a substance and something comes by and touches it. Is there a name for that? And what would that name be?
That's called a transfer stain. When a blood-bearing source comes in contact with another source, that's called a transfer.
What if the blood is already there and the source doesn't have any blood on them and they come by? Is it still called a transfer?
They're still within the transfer category. Specifically, if the blood is already on an object and something wipes through it, that's called a wipe. If the blood is on, say, me, and I'm moving it along here, I am swiping it along.
It's nice that the state's expert goes into all the possible DNA sources.
Yeah.
For example, let's say water is applied to blood. Does that have a tendency to affect or not affect the patterns in what you see?
Well, if water's
I
present, it may
have
actually
a
diminish and
playlist
wash away any of the
with
patterns that we
this
might
chart,
expect to see, that we might
and
see in a
you will
bloody
find
crime
it there
scene.
on my
It also
page.
can affect the appearance of stains
I
by
might
making
need to
their
add
edges look
this
very
particular
dilute, not as dark red. They might be very dilute red in appearance.
video to the
I'm gonna show you
playlist, but
some
yeah, I have a playlist as
photographs.
well.
Thank you, 20th Century Fox, for becoming a member of my page. Much appreciated. There are members-only
Just to
content
orient
for you
ourselves.
to watch
Exhibit number
and
83.
read.
And you see this right here down at the,
Yes, I do.
what is that?
That is the body of the deceased.
And this right here, did that have the appearance of blood to you?
Yes, it did.
Now, we've been talking about all these patterns and cast off and speeds and that sort of thing, active versus passive. First thing we sort of see is this right here. What, if that were blood,
Yes,
what would that
Lefty.
tell us?
But there's a line
David
of
is
volume
going to
that
be the
is
next
flowing
James
down and gravity
Bond.
is acting upon it.
And do we know how that got there? Because we've talked about something hitting something and then flying on there. Is there anything that we know about this one other than that gravity acted upon it?
No.
Exhibit number 84, and I want to direct you to this area here. Do you see that there?
Yes, I do.
And closer view, exhibit 86. The area there. Exhibit 87, that's a close-up of that area. And then exhibit 88, which is the toilet. Do you know where this toilet was?
Yes,
And exhibit 89. Are we still looking at the toilet?
yes.
I want to talk about this particular spot, and then you
Forget
see
I
in the
was muted.
back appears to be blood. Why don't you tell me what type of pattern we are looking at there?
That the stains that I see on the toilet and the bottom of this door jamb are from an impact to a blood source.
Is this an active sort of,
It would be an
Pattern?
active source, yes.
and so it's the blood being what? How does the blood get there?
There's an impact to the blood source of some sort that then causes the blood droplets to fly through the air and be deposited upon that surface.
Impact, right?
An impact, correct.
Can you, by looking at those, can you tell us the distance of the source to that location?
I can't define specifically, but I can tell you because they are small blood droplets at the bottom, those don't travel very far due to the effect of wind resistance upon them, air resistance. So they're not wind resistance, air resistance. So they're not going to travel very far. So the blood source was in proximity to,
And any idea how far was it in proximity?
in proximity, close proximity.
Where was can you tell us anything about the blood source, its positioning as in
There
terms
was
of
so much blood in this
Yeah.
case.
middle,
Yeah.
ceiling, floor? What can you tell us
And then-
about that?
Those stains are all from about 12 inches and down, and
we-
the stains,
And this is from a guy who is 50 to 60 pounds lighter and 4 or 5 inches shorter than Mr. Jodi in the Zachariah Anderson case. And the amount of blood that a human body contains is shown through this trial. What is shown in the Anderson trial, it's still a lot, but it's nowhere near the amount that is shown through evidence here.
You know, you get those certain cuts on your hands that just continuously bleed, and they're not that bad.
Cut on your head.
Yeah.
If you bang your head and it starts to gush out, it gushes. But yeah, so it's an interesting comparison.
Yeah.
Just to
Hey,
watch
Dave,
all this evidence in this trial compared to the Anderson trial.
Ant is here. Everybody's coming in. Hello. Sorry, I was just saying hello to everyone new in the chat.
Which means that the blood source is actually low.
Hi, everyone
Those
new.
blood stains simply flew to the side and impacted the wall at a 90-degree angle, and they made it essentially circular drops.
So what I understand you saying, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the source was low, source was not too far away because of the smaller droplets there, and there was impact to the blood source.
That's correct.
Well, let's look at the toilet that's back there.
Yes.
With regard to that, we'll take a look at exhibit number 90. There's the toilet in number 90. What do we see here?
We see the same type of stains, fairly round on a rounded surface like the side of the toilet. They can round, even though they might hit at a 90-degree angle, those can sometimes look a little bit more elliptical just because of the surface of the curved toilet. But those are essentially the small stains that I was talking about on the door jamb, and at the same height, they are below 12 inches.
Looking at these and the ones on the toilet, exhibit 87, spatially speaking, they're in different areas, correct?
Correct.
Does that tell you anything about the number of strikes to the blood source, or does it not?
These, because the way that these are lined up and you can see in the photograph, I can't rule that out as having been from the same event. It could be from more than one event, but it's at least, I can't rule out that it was simply one.
When you say event, are we talking about strikes?
One strike to that blood source.
But it could be more.
She's not the guy going, it went like this. In the Anderson case.
Yeah.
Take a look at
Ooh, wifey's in the chat. Hello.
exhibit number 84. You see this floor mat here?
Bang
your
your head.
Not in that lighting.
Exhibit number 86. Do you see the floor mat
Yes, I
there?
do.
With regard to that floor mat, did you conduct any tests?
I didn't do any tests on that at the scene.
The way you said that implies to me that you did some tests somewhere else.
I did examine that mat back in the laboratory.
And exactly what did you do to examine that floor mat?
I did my Kastle-Meyer preliminary test for the presence of blood, and I noted the presence of blood all over the bottom of that mat, in addition to the stain that's on top.
With regard to that mat, you were looking at that mat. Is it a situation where the blood was on top and then went to the bottom, or do you have a different opinion as to how the blood on the bottom got there?
No, the blood is throughout the bottom, and it's not consistent with the top drop having traveled through. It's more consistent with that mat having been moved either over blood stains that were already there, or there had been water in the scene, and that water mixed with the blood could have traveled under and deposited throughout the mat.
I hear you saying that there's two ways that the blood could have been deposited underneath the mat then.
Correct.
And one of them is moving, right?
Moving, yes.
Well, just because it's moving, that doesn't make blood magically appear, does it?
No,
What is it that it's coming in contact with that would allow it to then get under there?
blood stains that would already be present.
So in other words, one of the scenarios is that there was blood somewhere else and this mat was run over them, right?
Correct.
And the other one was what?
That with the water involvement that I can see, you can see it in this picture, the way that it's affected that other stain. That
right
water and blood had traveled
Ma'am,
together.
is this stain
Yes,
and this is
yes,
the water
the edges
involvement?
that are red and dilute looking.
Well,
So
just so that we can focus in on that. What do you see there that tells you that there's water been there? How do you know that? It just looks like a dark stain with some reddish stains.
because that has been, water would cause that effect to start to loosen up the blood and start it to diffuse, to be dilute in appearance. So it's starting to dilute that large stain.
And so what you're saying is there's a proximity between the mat and that, which implies that maybe
We can
water
do that.
one way it got there, or the other one is that it was moved, right?
Correct.
did you take a look at the consistency? And by that, I mean whether or not the blood could have traveled from the
I'm
top to
afraid
the
of
bottom.
what
Did you
kind
look
of
at that? Is it that type of
emojis
mat that
they
the
are
blood clicks on?
suggesting.
The top is all bamboo strips, and that's what the
They're gonna
blood
be
on
Jodi
top of the mat
based.
was laying on top of. The bottom has a felt type middle, and then a fabric edge, and it's not the kind that blood would not travel from that one drop through the bottom.
When we're talking about this scenario, one of the things that we talked about previously, when you were explaining this to me, you indicated that, well, if there is a blood source somewhere and another item comes by that doesn't have any blood on it, if it rubs up against it, the blood can be transferred, right?
Correct.
So the first, I guess, explanation would be that this would be a blood transfer. Would that be correct?
Correct.
And then the other one would be water, right? Correct. Taking a look at this item there, along with the one that's here around the corner, we then take a look at exhibit number 91.
Already have it. Thanks, Dave.
Do you see both of those?
Yes, I do.
Let's talk about this over here. What are we looking at there?
That is a large accumulation of blood.
And how was that blood left there? How did the source leave the blood there?
One of two ways. One of the likelier options is that a blood source was in one position, allowing it to drip down and collect in that area.
And so that's the gravity aspect.
That would be, yes, that the blood source just dripped past the blood. The other being, I can't account for all of the situations with water, how water would, and this tile would pull it together, but I can't totally dismiss that some of the water activity deposited it there, though it seems more likely due to the size of it that it was deposited from a blood source.
If it was deposited there from the blood source, and you did say it was a large amount of blood there, is that a function of time also?
This is
that,
not our stream. That's
to get a larger
the stream we
blood
are
spot like this
picking from.
takes more time than to just get a spot, for example, if this were one stripe, than to get this pattern. Could it be a function of time?
It could be a function of time.
And I suspect that the answer is you can't give me a time.
I can't give you the time.
Excuse me for a
Exhibit
minute.
91.
Sure.
What do we have here?
Well, hello.
We have
all.
more blood stains on, this is the eastern wall of the exterior of the toilet room.
And let's talk about these.
Yeah,
right
she's
here.
not trying to guess, right? This expert.
Those
She's like,
on this
I don't
wall, I observed blood stains that were traveling in a downward and towards the south, which is the window, which is up at the top over here.
And in terms of how they were deposited there, do you have an opinion as to how those were?
An impact to a blood source
So something that was bleeding or had blood on it.
in close
struck.
proximity to the wall.
Because of this wall here, can you now say it was, or not say, that it was more than one strike? In other words, it would be one strike here to the breach of the door here, and then another strike here. Is that what you can say? Or can you say it's the same strike and the blood went through the wall?
I would not say the blood went through the wall.
So how many strikes are you looking at there?
Then we're looking at two different strikes or events.
At least, right?
Correct.
Oh,
It could be more.
Wendy,
Right.
thanks for the gifted membership.
And because they are so
CTY,
diffused,
Darcy, Mark
does that give
Green,
you an indication as to
KK Guns,
how many there were or not?
Bones,
How many strikes there were?
Wild
Right.
Red.
So it still could be one strike,
All
right?
received new memberships. Thanks to Wendy H. Thank you.
See this down here? Is that also blood right down here?
I
Click
haven't
the
seen another
membership
shot
tab
of
and you
it.
get a link to our
Okay,
Discord.
we'll get another one for you to look at.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be back in the designated area at 1:25. Please remember the admonition. Have a nice lunch. You are excused.
That was quick. Yes, and please share with your friends and family, especially your family. I don't know if this is the cut where they skip all this and they cut it out, or if we're just going to be staring at the seal for a bit. Oh, no, it went blank. So I will just talk. What amazes me about this case is this case took place in 2013. It started in 2012. They ended up going in 2013. It's not that long ago. It's 10 years ago.
Please be seated. The record will show that the jury has left the courtroom. Ms. Wilmot,
Oh, hang on.
you may.
They're approaching. Okay. But the level of competent prosecutorial conduct is what I want to emphasize compared to some of the trials that we're seeing, where they pull out speculative arguments in closing, seemingly to produce reasonable doubt themselves, yet they still get convictions. The investigation is shoddy. They're only looking at evidence that is favorable to the state and ignoring everything else and putting up a bunch of roadblocks for the defense. It's nonsense. 10 years ago, this was a proper trial. And today, a proper trial looks nothing like this, apparently. What is my opinion on this judge thus far? I think she's good. She's keeping everything to a timeline. She doesn't seem to be, although there's not shenanigans going on, right? But she's not allowing shenanigans. We'll see. My biggest criticisms of this judge might come into play when Jodi herself takes the stand, because apparently the cross goes for 13 days, which seems extremely excessive to me, extremely excessive. So I'll reserve my judgment for the judge as we go. But right now, she seems fine. Get it, Salvador. Yeah, Salvador's only 40 minutes away. He's got to go check her out, right? She's got to get a little conjugal visit with Jodi. By the way, if you haven't noticed, I have Jodi's legs behind me. This is Jodi's prison art for anyone who's new. I did not order it. One of my listeners or viewers or chatters, whatever, sent it. But I think that's Jodi Arias' signature right there, which is amazing. And I'm very excited to have that on my wall for this stream. We got a break. They're going to lunch.
Okay, let's see here. Oh,
I think I'm close to the Playboy Mansion, but love the look. And this is my Jodi Arias tuxedo.
Recess, correct? What we were talking about. Judge, I think you may have to turn on the thing for me. It's not on.
I've been reading the prosecutor's book, by the way, and I can tell. I'm in chapter 9, I think. I can tell he is just itching to get her on the stand and wants to cross-examine her. And
Exhibit
I
91 is what we
know
were talking about, correct?
Correct.
he's going to have
And you
fun with
indicated
it.
that there was at least 2 strikes so far, correct?
Correct.
thank you,
go back
Wendy,
to,
for gifting 5
Exhibit number
memberships.
83. And I'm not talking about strikes, I'm just talking
Dirk
about areas.
Diggler,
Areas at this time.
Gail
It
Q,
would seem that there are 3.
Barnes,
based
Nat
on what
for
we see here,
Plum,
there are 3 separate
Catherine
areas where the source of blood
Finney,
was, correct? Correct.
uh,
And part of the reason would be that.
with
the
an
one that's
interesting last name.
exhibit
I have one of those
number
too.
86,
Yeah.
this area of the door, plus exhibit number 91.
Thank you so much. And
area here,
there is
and then we
members
looked at
only
here,
content for you to
exhibit
watch
number
after
83
this stream
are not joined, if you will, or
and
connected
after
in any
next
way.
stream.
Right.
Okay, exhibit number 94. We talked about the
No,
wall
Mark Green rejoined.
in
Thanks,
exhibit
Mark.
number 91, right?
Correct.
And how about down here on the ground? What kind of drops are those?
Those are bloodstains that I wouldn't offer an opinion whether those could be passive or be ones that hit the ground from the impact on that west wall, on the east wall.
And why is that?
They didn't offer enough characteristics to make a determination.
And they could be related to the ones on the wall, they could not, right?
Correct.
Now, to the right of that, we also see some other staining. Do you see that right there?
I do.
And is it your opinion that this on the left, is that related or not related to those on the right?
May or may not.
And why do you say may or may not?
There's nothing distinct, a pattern to recognize. They're just blood droplets, and just a few blood droplets don't always create a pattern.
One of the things that we talked about was whether it's a passive placing of the drop versus an active placing. Is this
I
something
was
that gravity
on
acted upon these
Hayden's
here, or is it
24-hour
something you
stream
can't tell us?
I
for
can't tell that when
5
I talk
hours
about the passive
last
drops,
night.
one of the ways that we identify those is because they
So,
are
yeah,
nice
I was
round
there
90-degree drops when they impact the
drinking and
surface like
having
this.
fun.
So they're nice and round. Those aren't as pretty, so to speak. So I
After
wouldn't want to offer an opinion on that.
after this stream
Exhibit
and
number
my midsummer stream that follows
95.
this stream, I
And
will
What are we looking at here in
I
terms of
will
the scale?
return to
We're
see
looking
how
at a
he's
scale
doing.
that is on the south end of the bathroom that has
20th century,
bloodstains
no.
on top
There's
of
no
and
thumbs in
underneath
my
the scale.
painting.
And did you take, or did you examine this at the scene, or did you conduct your examination back at the lab?
I observed it at the scene and then also examined it back in the laboratory.
What did you do at the lab?
At the laboratory, I did the Castlemeyer testing, the preliminary test we discussed earlier on the staining up to the I think I can touch this up in here.
Okay, and you did the Kastle-Meyer test there?
I did the Kastle-Meyer on that test there.
On
that,
top or
on that
bottom?
scene. On the top.
And did you do any Kastle-Meyer on the bottom?
No, I did not. That was actually at the crime scene.
Okay, and at the crime scene, when you did the Kastle-Meyer, what part of it, the bottom of the scale, did you examine? Or did you not do the Kastle-Meyer at the?
I did not do any Kastle-Meyer on the on the bottom surface.
But there was a reddish substance that you believed to be blood underneath there, right?
This right here. Trying the technology.
The decor of
That one right
Travis's home, yeah, it was kind of, it's a bachelor pad.
Knowing what you know about
Three guys
blood
live there.
spatter, what is the scenario? How is it that this blood drop was stuck, if you will? Is it to the
It might be
scale or is it to
tainted
the
by
floor?
It is on the
substances
floor. The stain
as
is on the
well.
floor itself.
Okay, so if the scale is on top of it, what does it tell you about the stain that's there?
That the scale was moved into the position above the blood stain.
And do we have any issues about water with regard to this one? or not?
Toyla Carissa, new member on my page.
Exhibit number-
Thank you so much, Toy.
96.
Much welcome. There's members only content
Right up
for you
against the
to
wall here,
watch
do we
and
see?
read.
There are blood droplets.
And did you have occasion to look
Thank you so
inside
much.
the wastebasket?
I did.
And what did you find in the wastebasket?
There was a paper towel and 2 empty toilet paper tubes, type cardboard rings.
Did they
Three
have
men and a stabby.
anything
Yeah.
or any indication of blood or anything that looked like blood in that wastebasket?
I examined the toilet paper tubes back in the laboratory, and my indications with my test were that there was blood detected.
So you now have what appears to be blood, and your belief is blood, in the trash can there. You have it right there. And then you also have it underneath the scale. How many events are we talking about here at this point?
Well, we discussed that you counted 3 prior.
Right.
And then this is more bleeding, but I don't know. how
Dave, it's
many
on your
events
Facebook
They're moving
now.
to the corner.
Would this be a separate event from the other involving the wall? This one
No.
over here.
Yeah, this is a dual stream. Both me and
Direction,
David are
it seems
streaming,
far to have
and it's
traveled, but I
streamed
would-
on
I don't know if I could
David's
rule it out
Facebook
completely.
as well.
It's possible that it could be another event that was
I
occurring in
haven't
this area.
seen
Yes.
anyone else in Facebook. I think they all left me.
Just to orient ourselves, exhibit number 93.
Yep,
This is the scale we've been talking about.
it's
The trash can is right here,
$3 a
correct?
month,
correct.
and I like to keep it that
We
way.
have the
That way, I
Sink
believe
area,
that
right?
Yes.
more people can be involved in my channel to give
Exhibit
suggestions.
number
I
98.
sometimes have a poll on
What are we looking at here?
on
We're looking
what
at the sink
subjects
that is
or
to
what
the
booths
north.
I'm going to
of-
buy and
There's
stuff
2
like
sinks in
that.
the back room. This
Yeah.
is the one to the north.
So
And
I
we've been
like to
talking
keep
about events
people
so far. We've
involved.
talked about 3, but is this a
And,
separate
yeah.
event?
From the other, yes.
Can you pause it real quick?
Let's start talking about this.
CTY. It was an apartment, so the decor was not his choice. No, Travis actually owned this home, and he made himself out to be more or less fairly successful in the prepaid legal world, but he wasn't. And so to make ends meet, he rented out 2 of his rooms to some friends of his. And so he had 2 roommates that he collected rent from, but it was his house. So just to clarify that.
Okay, yeah. Whole lot of bathroom and toilet testimony. Yeah, that's where it all happened in this case. Hey, thank you, Dave. Much appreciated. Let's go.
area here in front. It's, first of all, would you agree or disagree that the coloration of that seems to be a little bit different than the one inside the bowl?
I would.
And what would cause something like that?
It appears diluted as if it would be with water.
And exhibit number 100, as it applies to that, what are we looking at here?
The blood is dripping down the side of the ledge of the counter.
So in terms of what we've been talking about, passive versus active, what, or how would you characterize this? How would you define it? Tell me about it.
Those diluted patterns, I would say, are evidence of transfer between a blood-bearing source and a non-blood-bearing source. But as I indicated earlier, I don't know if this is blood is present already and then something moves through it, or the blood is on another item and then transfers onto the counter, or a combination thereof.
But it could, but bottom line is there is, at least at some point, the source placing the blood there, right?
Absolutely.
And at some point, something came by and swiped it, if you will. That's, I think you call these swipes, right?
Swipes or wipes, yes.
I don't think
If
so.
we look to the left of that, do you see this right here?
I do.
Is that the same thing as what we've been looking at or not?
Those are what we were previously discussing as passive drops that are simply being acted upon by gravity.
Let's look at Exhibit 105.
Memberships on my channel is $3 a month. David,
Yes.
are you
All
at
right,
the
well,
same price
how could
level?
These
That's a good
blood drops
question.
here.
I have three
on Exhibit
different
105.
levels. I could pull them up right now
How could they find
because I was
their
amending
way to
my
get there in
emojis.
that shape.
The blood source
I have
was
$2.99 for the
this
basic
location above
membership.
the
That'll
sink.
get you access to
And was
everything.
the,
And then
blood
$7.99
source-
and $24.99
blood
will actually
source
get
doing?
you involved with
I understand
creation
that,
content,
was
like
blood
Wendy
source
H did last
moving
week.
left
or
to
a couple
right,
weeks
moving
ago.
front to back, or just
Okay, okay.
stationary?
Well, it
I only
depended
have
which way
one,
That's moving into the sink or backing up out of the sink.
I'm
Right.
still
And
trying to
some sort of
learn
motion over the sink.
these
At some point, there
YouTube
was some
things,
motion by
so
the blood source
I have
over
one
the
level.
sinks, and that's what that tells you, right? And it also tells you that, I guess it was over the top of the sink.
Over the top.
Is this partly a function of gravity?
Yes.
We've talked about those, and you indicated sort of in and out motion by the source. And then we talked about this source, or not this source, but this area here on the left. Both of those appear, from what you're telling me, to be somewhat movement oriented, or would that be incorrect?
No, I'd say that. I would agree with that.
There are crime scene photos.
How about this area here, inside the bowl? And in terms of placement
There's a
of the
picture,
source,
Baker.
103 shows it.
Were you thinking of other
And
kinds
also
of pictures?
104. You see
There
that?
will
Mhm.
be
yes.
a point
Yes, I see that. I'm sorry.
in this trial where Jodi Arias
terms
parts
of
are
where the source
entered into
was.
evidence.
And based on the patterns that you have there.
The
Yeah.
source is above the sink, and some of those you can see are specific droplets. Some of them, because of the curvature of the sink, are merging
Hey,
together
first time for Mike
But the
catching
source
a live.
of the blood
Welcome, welcome.
above the sink.
Do these also imply movement like those that are down here, or do they not?
Well, since they move in, they're in several different locations, it would imply that the blood source is moving a bit, yes.
Could all of these functions, Exhibit 104, the scraping there, or the swiping, the dropping of the blood there,
I feel like that might be Travis himself,
and the
at the sink,
the middle of the tub of the
smearing
sink,
stuff.
does that give
Oh,
you
you
any
mean
indication
those
of time,
pictures?
or can
Yeah.
these all be done at the same time, or are they events that are occurring?
Without the shaving
one, there's
accident.
another, we just don't know which is first. Why don't you tell me about that?
I would say that this movement at the edge of the sink could be concurrent with the drops that are into the sink.
Including the ones that are in the middle there.
Yes.
Exhibit number 98. See this area right over here
I do.
near the mirror?
I do.
Was there any blood spatter or any blood on the mirror?
There was, it's very difficult to see when we get to those shots because of the mirror, but there was.
There was some on the mirror. With regard to the blood on the mirror, or the substance on the mirror, what kind of action, or what can you tell me about those patterns?
When I was talking earlier about the categories, I discussed the projected blood, that blood that is, that a force or a pressure acts upon to eject a volume of blood. This would be categorized in that category and could be a number of different mechanisms.
Sure, but let's just talk about, is this what Exhibit 100 is? Where was the blood? I understand that perhaps because of the flash, we're not really able to see it, but if you could tell us where it would be, or show us on the monitor there.
If I can get my finger to do the right working here. There were stains, if I have that about right. There would be, it wasn't as concentrated as this, but there, when you can see the photos, you can see similar to this up here.
And this right here, this event underneath it right there, is that the same kind of spatter?
Yes,
Do you know whether or not this spatter here was caused by the same event that causes spatter?
it would be
on here?
consistent with being from the same event,
Could it also be a second event?
potentially.
And Exhibit 103, if you could clear it.
In Jody's defense, her attorney is also hiding behind
This is what
her
we're
hair.
looking at here, right?
Yeah.
Well, what about these heavier ones, heavier drops in there? What is that about?
There could be, this large one could be part of this the passive drops that are down in the bottom of the sink. They can also just be larger blood stains that just drips together.
And if we take a look at exhibit number 101, are we then looking at this spatter, and again, my question is how come some are dripping and some aren't?
Because when blood is acted upon with force, that not all, the blood droplets don't all break into the same size. And so some are going to be larger. And so some, when they hit that, have more of a weight or a volume, and therefore they drip down from the gravity because they're a larger stain.
What can cause this kind of spatter pattern?
A mechanism that might have
Sure.
done that. I earlier discussed the expirated, which was somebody maybe coughing or sneezing if they have blood in their airways, or from a wound, air forcing that out. The head is a very vascular area, and I don't know if you've ever nicked yourself shaving, then you know that those can bleed quite a bit. And a wound or a laceration to the head could cause the misting and the patterns that we see here, the side staining that we see here.
And what else? Anything else?
Gunshot wounds can produce that type of misting effect as well.
When you are examining these kinds of things, do you just look at it, the pattern, without reference to anything else that's at the scene, or do you also look at?
Yeah, I
anything
forgot
around these
to
patterns to
save her
provide guidance to
name
you as to
in
what
my
your opinion is
banners.
causing these patterns?
When we are at the scene, we are making observations of what those patterns are. What do they look like? What are their sizes? What are their sizes? And then we we use other information such as investigators'
So far,
information,
the state's
medical
experts
examiner's
have been
information to
very
make
good at
determinations on what
their
potential
testimonies.
mechanisms created those
Even the
stains.
cops
You also look at the area
have
around
been
it,
very
Yes.
effective.
potentially to see if there's anything else there. So for example, in this case, exhibit number 114 shows us what? What are we looking at there?
There is a casing laying in a blood stain.
Well, tell me a little bit about this casing and how it was placed there based on your knowledge of blood spatter blood spatter training.
The blood stain was there, and the casing came and landed upon that.
If the casing falls into the blood, what does it tell you about the blood source in terms of sequence as to whether or not the blood source was already bleeding before the gunshot wound?
It would tell us the blood was already present, so the blood source was already bleeding prior to the gunshot.
So I don't know about the sweet person, but what does it tell you in terms of this? Was the blood source already bleeding at the time that this casing somehow found its way into that blood?
Yes.
Approach.
What was the objection? I missed that.
Cause for speculation.
Oh,
But
well,
I think they already went through that with another witness who said because of there was no blood other than on the underside of the casing, which means it fell directly onto it and stayed there.
yeah. I mean, a lot of this is speculation, but if it's, I don't know.
Training and expertise and stuff like that.
Yeah, if
It's
not-
it's a logical conclusion more than a speculation in my mind.
With regard to that casing, in terms of when it was it placed in relation to the blood? When was that casing placed there in relation to the blood?
After the blood was deposited there.
So the blood source was already bleeding.
Yes.
So based on that, and based on, you indicated that you read the medical examiner's report?
Yes, I
correct?
did.
And having read the medical examiner's report, having taken a look at that, what is your opinion then as to the source in exhibit number 101, or the mechanism as to how that pattern there was formed?
Then I would say that it would be either the expirated, the coughing, or a laceration to the head, one of those mechanisms,
But not the gunshot.
not the gunshot.
They have left, the brother
Take a
and
look at,
sisters have left
exhibit number
the
116.
on occasions when it's
Are
too
you familiar
graphic.
with that area?
Yes, this is the
What's that?
linen closet to the north of the sink area.
And exhibit 117, what are we looking at there?
Yeah.
It's an accumulation of blood.
Oh,
at the
in
edge
the
of
courtroom,
linen
the
closet.
gallery. Yeah.
Yeah.
We keep talking about accumulation of blood. As it applies to this particular accumulation, is that
So
an accumulation
They're
that
allowed to
took some time, or is that something that
form an opinion and offer that opinion based off of their experience and the evidence that they're looking at. But they can't speculate. Even an expert can't speculate. They can only offer an opinion based off of what their observations are and scientific studies and their experience and whatever it may be. This particular case, she's saying, I've looked at enough of this blood splatter that I am going to offer an opinion as to this, but she can't speculate still.
Mhm.
It's a fine
Yeah.
line, I understand, but that's why we have objections in bench conferences.
it's immediate? How
That
is-
would, I don't know how much blood is there. It looks like a large amount. It would be a product of time of the blood source being in one position for a little while, but I don't know how long.
Ah,
And
hey,
how is it
Farrell.
formed? Do you know whether
Farrell's
or not
in my
it's a
chat,
product of
David,
gravity
just so you know.
or perhaps a
You
source
can keep
going
her.
down.
I do not know.
It could
Yeah.
be any of those.
It
Right?
could be those.
Yeah, I want
The
to
fact
around.
that there is blood, for example, in different areas, does that tell you anything about what the blood source may have been doing?
Moving.
Do you have any idea, because of the blood being different places, do you have any idea how fast or how slow the blood source may have been moving? Or is that something you just can't talk about?
Something I just couldn't say.
We then take a look at Exhibit 115
I like an expert that says too.
Yeah.
in terms of the,
Sometimes I don't know the answer
item
to
that
your
we just
question,
looked at.
counselor.
Yeah.
You know, because that actually offers or supports credibility as opposed to diminishes the credibility. The expert or the witness that knows every answer to every question that's ever asked of her, ever, is not very credible.
Yeah, and if the prosecution has to tell a story instead of just asking a question, just to have a yes, no, maybe, then it's really weak. As in the Zachariah Anderson case,
Yes.
where the experts more or less followed the lead of the prosecution instead of just how the prosecution in this, how did this happen? What is your opinion on this? And then the expert can elaborate. In the Anderson trial, it was the other way around. The prosecution giving a story-filled question that demanded a yes answer.
No, I agree.
Oh, yeah. They
Yes.
could have objected more on that, but sometimes that's not the case.
what are we seeing here?
There's, I'm looking for a better word.
Well, then let's take a look at 118. Is this a better one?
It is. There's a box within that linen closet that shows, as you can see these demarcations, that water didn't make the
Once you clear that up a little bit, start all over. I think you ran your finger.
too much. The markings
Oh, that's bloody red water.
right in that area
Soaked
show
up
that
in
water
the
is
box.
wicked, bloody water is wicked up into the box.
Look at that. I predicted her
And
testimony.
in this case, how is that? How can that be accomplished? How can we get this pattern that's on the box accomplished? How does that happen?
There
That's
would
a
be
lot of water and a lot
coming
of blood
into the
to
water.
get soaked
These
up
other
that way.
stains, this stain here has the diluted appearance on the edge. So it's a lighter shade of red. And you can see the diluted shades of, I don't know if I'm marking everywhere, the diluted shades of blood. And that simply travels up the box in a wicking motion, in a wicking action.
The fact that it looks like it's all the way around the box, does that speak to the volume of blood that was around this area? Or is it, you can have this
Yes,
little
he
bit of
did,
blood and then
Gigi. Yes, he
sort of
did.
mushrooms out if you apply water to it?
I couldn't
did
quite comment
spec-
on the
yep.
volume of blood, other
Just for
than you can
Jodi.
still see it's very, the demarcation lines are very red. So it seems like it's not just a drop of blood in water.
Okay. We've seen this item there. Now, if we look a little further on down, Exhibit 125, we see another one of those. Do you see that?
Yes.
What can you tell us about the fact that there's these very much larger circular areas of blood? What does that say about the source? Or can you tell us anything about what the source was doing?
Well, the source, like I addressed earlier, that it could either be the action of the blood source being in one position there for a while, bleeding that accumulation, that little pool, or there could be some process of this with the water contact, it pooling in one area, but I'm not certain about that.
Okay. Exhibit 120. Are you familiar with item number 6 on this photograph?
No,
Are you familiar with having done screening on a hair follicle? At the
I did screening on the hair. I was not
Why don't you
not
take,
certain that it was number 6.
do you know whether or not the hair was at the number 6 location or not?
I would only be able to know a property ID number referencing my report, but I don't
Why
know
don't you
that.
go ahead and do that, all right? Sure.
Yes.
I don't remember if we saw dead body pictures. We saw a lot of blood splatter and stuff on Tuesday.
I think a couple of weeks ago they showed hand and then on the next stream foot, but not the actual
Looking for it,
dismembered
Let
body.
me know, but don't read it out loud.
I found the
Thank you,
property.
Kerber Wanderers,
All right,
for
go ahead.
becoming a
Report
member.
back and tell me,
Thank you
did
so
do any
much.
work with regard to this number
There
6?
are
I know the property.
members only content for
You
you
need the property.
on
I
my
know
channel.
that. Can I
Thank you
look
so
into my
much.
notes as well?
Sure, please,
Let me
go
see if
ahead.
that helps. If that was number 6LB, that's what I had it referenced as 6LB,
All right, and what is 6LB?
was a possible hair.
And what did you do with that possible hair back at the lab?
Back at the lab, I did my preliminary Kastle-Meyer test. Didn't get indications of blood, but on the end that appeared to possibly have a root ball, or had white material consistent with being a root. I processed that and sent it forward for DNA analysis.
Why did you focus on the root as opposed to the hair itself?
Because that's where we can get our DNA. That's where
Is that where
our
the DNA
comes.
resides?
Yes, for the way that we process DNA, yes.
Take a look at exhibit 126.
Hey,
And for reference, you see this.
server became a
George
member
over
at
there.
your place too,
It's in the
David.
closet.
Why don't you
Ooh,
take a
awesome.
look at it? And
Thank you very much. Go to the membership tab on the YouTube and you can get a link to our Discord and some other stuff. Discord is where we have a lot of the member benefits.
is
We
the-
carry on stuff
The
from
linen
here,
closet, that's what I'm just trying to
um,
orient myself.
from the YouTube streams. I mean, Jodi Arias and
where would this
other
be then?
content as well.
this
If
one.
that is the edge of the linen closet, then this is the west wall of the master bathroom hallway.
My question is, why is this area here much lighter than the other stains that we've been looking at?
Due to the contact with water. That the water has spread over this area and has not affected the other areas as much.
See this area right here?
Yes,
What is that?
that would be transfer stain, as we talked about earlier, a blood-bearing source coming into contact with another source, with another surface.
And so it's sort of a sliding kind of process there.
It is linear, so it could be sliding that way, correct?
Then exhibit number 127. Do you see that there?
Yes,
And what is this? What's going on here?
it appears to be the same. It's a transfer in the transfer pattern.
But why is it up here that it's just linear and down here we have it coming down? Do you see that?
There's more volume for one reason, for whatever reason, the contact with the blood source was more, there's more of a volume that caused it to drip down.
And Wendy gifted 5 more memberships.
Exhibit number
Oh.
129.
On your channel?
Yes.
See the
Why
door
was
here?
Yeah.
Salvador?
And so
Oh,
which
wait,
wall is this
Salvador
one?
Deli
That is the
Talk.
west wall.
As we
That's a
look at that, that's
different-
part of the reason I want to talk about this is,
Okay. Rachel
What is this
Salvador
over here?
Deli Talk.
That is the saturation stain on the carpet.
so that is carpet.
Composer
Yes, that's
C.
You see this
Brian
right
Miller.
here. We see,
Daniel
you
D.
see that little
All were gifted
circle there,
memberships.
half circle thing
Yep.
there? You see that? I see that.
Salvador has
And
his own
then
channel now, so you
this
might
area
have
here is
changed his
relatively And then you follow this around.
name in the.
and all the way
I was
back.
gonna
It
say,
also
I can't
appears to be
believe Salvador
relatively
wasn't a
clean until
member
you see
already.
this spot here
Yep,
and this other
that's
spot
him.
here that we talked about
Okay.
previously. How is it, or what does that tell you in terms of the depositing of blood when you have a situation like this, and then you take a look at the left right there?
Or we can see that water has come into contact. It could be
Oh,
that water has gone
yeah.
through the entire middle.
But if water's gone through the middle, what's going on over here? And it seems to be in a round circle down here. Can you tell me how that happens?
Maybe there was something there that prevented it from that area being bloody.
Would it also be consistent with, for example, a cleaning utensil of some sort
It could be, yes,
coming through here and doing this?
sure.
In looking at these along the wall here, is
Mopping
it
up
a circumstance that the source
is
is
not the easiest
bleeding
because it's more or less
as it
just
goes along
spreading
there, or
everything
are
around.
any of those
I feel like she
related to
tried and then she was
strike, or is
like,
it
yeah,
just a
this is
situation
not
that
going
the
to work.
source,
And then just
as it
left.
passes through
Yeah.
there, however it passes through there, it's just depositing the blood? Is that what's going on?
It could be, they're not really in a pattern for me to determine this was where an impact occurred, this is where something else occurred. They're just a bunch of blood stains and some accumulations and the dilute factor. So I couldn't really talk about specific incident each down that hall.
But could you tell me whether or not the source at least was in these areas to
Yes.
deposit that blood?
Yes,
And at the same time, was the source at least depositing blood on the left side of it?
yes.
Now let's take a look at exhibit
Jody
one.
did a hard pass on the work
32.
that was involved.
Is this the carpet?
Yes, it is.
If that's the carpet, what wall is this one?
That's the east wall.
And again, we see this up here. You see right above the switch there, or not
Yes.
switch, but the electrical outlet. And then this right here.
Right.
What could create that sort of circular half moon kind of pattern on the wall?
Isn't that
Any
speculation?
sort of the transfer
Yeah.
type stain, so anything that would be blood bearing coming into contact with it. or the blood being on the wall and something coming into contact with it and moving it along.
Then if
Okay,
we
well,
take a look
that's
at
a
the area to the
non-speculative
right of the switch in
answer.
Exhibit 133,
Yeah. Question was
You see that
speculative,
circular
but
pattern
she
also,
answered well.
right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and why is that coming down right to the right of that switch? What does that say?
It'd just be a matter of the volume that contacted it right there.
This area here of the blood pattern going through there, does that speak to the height of the action of whether the source had blood or whether there was blood there? Is that what it speaks to, the height?
The height that the transfer occurred at, yes.
And then underneath it is what we have here.
Right.
Would it be consistent with the source being this high and then bleeding down? And these be a result of gravity?
Those could be from gravity. Because of the water, it makes them very difficult to determine them from a specific event, but they were clearly deposited there.
Why does the water make it difficult to do that?
Do you
Because it
think
washes
Jody
away the edges
expected
of
that
any of
much
the blood
blood?
stains and makes them not regularly
No.
shaped, which is what we look
No.
for in
No,
identifying patterns.
Nobody expects
Down here,
the
you see
amount
this area
of
here?
blood
Yes.
that
Now,
the human
That area was
body
cut out and we've taken a look at it. Have you actually taken a look?
consists of. For you who doesn't know, I've been in or around farms more or less my entire life, and I know how to slaughter animals. And a 300-pound pig and a 300-pound man, more or less the same in blood volume and stuff like that. And it is a lot. And if you don't expect it, you have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's just I've never butchered an animal the size of a human, but just from what I understand from these sort of crimes, there's a lot more blood than people expected, and I don't think Jody expected this much blood.
No.
But I will say that I was happy with the experts' answer. Again, this is a credible. This is 10 years ago, right? This is when experts actually and prosecutors actually presented credible cases. The question was speculative about this blood swipe, but the answer was, I don't know. Anything that came into contact with it, if it had blood on it or if there was blood on the wall, and swiped it through. Perfect answer, because that's all she could say. I mean, anything else would be speculative.
How does Nick know that a 300-pound pig? That was both a part of my education in food science and my education in law. So
And Mythbusters.
And Mythbusters.
Mythbusters. That's how I know.
Yeah. Oh.
Look at the rug yourself?
I did see it when somebody else had it out. Yes,
And so you did see it.
I did see it.
And with regard to this particular stain, this is exhibit number 131. What can you tell us about it?
But that is a large saturation stain, which means that it's a large pool, an accumulation of blood or a blood
Yeah,
pool that's
nope.
gone into an absorbent material, the carpet.
So can you tell us anything about whether or not the source was standing, kneeling, or whether or not the...
I couldn't define the position other than it was over that area.
What about right here? Do you see this one sort of seems, for lack of a better term, more pristine, whereas this one up here seems to be rubbed? Do you see that?
Yes,
What could cause that?
it could be any sort of contact with that stain.
Somebody walking through it could do that?
Absolutely.
Were you able to determine whether or not there had been any water applied to this area?
Not when we saw this side, but when we saw the underside, we did.
Okay, I'm asking about what you saw. Okay, so
Okay.
when you saw, did you see the underside?
I did see the
Okay.
underside.
On the underside, how is it that you were able to see whether or not water had been applied? How are you sure that you did see that?
Because there was the same way that looking down the hall, there was the dilute blood stains. You could see the light shade of red covering areas of the tile. It was very much diffused around this, under this carpet, under this stain, kind of the same coloration maybe as that, the box that was in the linen closet. So a lighter shade of red, implying it had been diluted and it flowed down in that area.
And you were talking about, to take a look at exhibit 115, you're talking about this box down here at the
Yes.
bottom. So the water that had been applied, were you able to tell if the water had come through the top or if it had just been in this direction? In other words, was the top wet or was it just the bottom? Or speak to me about the moisture on that.
Well, when we were at the scene, I don't recall it being wet, but looking at it from underneath, it had at least seeped through from the edge of the tile on, but I don't know how
Okay.
the mechanism for carpet.
Well, let me show you exhibit
Yeah.
number one.
this is really interesting because they had a mat that was drenched in blood, that they could see the differences between being diluted with water or not, but it was dry. And that brings us again back to the Zachariah Anderson trial, where the blood was still wet.
3 days later.
3 days later. Wet, not only damp, but wet enough for cops who went in to leave footprints.
Now, this is 5 days later, but you'd have to assume that the blood would completely dry in 2 days. If you were to
Yeah.
take the Zachariah Anderson and the Jodi Arias timeline, you have to assume that it's going to stay wet for 3, like substantially wet for 3, and then dry immediately in 2 days.
And I
I
don't
feel
buy
like the
it.
defense needed a crime scene investigation expert as well as their own DNA expert
Yeah,
in that case.
yeah. But that's the thing when you have to pay for your own defense.
Mhm.
Sometimes you just don't have the money for it, sadly.
28, we see that same stain there on
Yes.
the left side. Then we look over here on the right. Do you see that on the right?
Yes.
What is going on with that?
It appears to be a lot of transfers, and part of that could be from either stains that have been disrupted by walking over them. It could be a product of the diffused, the diluted blood flowing under, and then it being walked on and coming up to the surface.
So
I
it could
can't make
be,
an absolute determination.
it could be, I think you used the word, did you use trampling?
I said transfer, but this, like the stepping could be, if there had been nice looking stains there, walking over it could have disrupted that and created this.
Does this imply a lot of walking or a little bit of walking?
Well, it's not a pristine looking area, so it would imply a lot of movement of some sort.
Could it
or
also be-
contact of some sort.
Could it also be that, you see that it sort of seems to end here?
Yes.
Did you see any that went this way? This walking motion, that, or if it was walking this way?
I mean, beyond this,
Yes,
beyond
beyond
this,
this.
I never saw any blood beyond this area in the
So
bedroom.
this is the only area that you saw this staining of blood, right?
Correct.
Did you see any blood throughout the master bedroom anywhere other than right here in this area?
Just right here, and then I think there was maybe one stain or so right outside the closet here.
Where? Show me where.
Right here. I just wrote on top of it.
Okay, so was it a large stain or
No,
small?
just a couple drops
A
maybe.
couple drops there? But did you see any near the bed, anywhere
No,
else?
no, I did not.
How about near the area where the bathroom goes into the closet? Did you see any blood staining there at all?
In the closet, no,
On the carpet at all?
no.
So with regard to this staining here, would it be consistent with, and if you know, you don't know, somebody sort of walking on this, for whatever reason they're walking on this particular area and not going into the bedroom,
Yes,
but perhaps going the other way?
perhaps, yes.
That's a bit speculative, but he doesn't object.
Let's see, look at exhibit number 78. You see that?
Yes, I do.
And was there any staining here? Was there any blood staining at all? That's the closet, right?
That's the closet, no.
And then we have something right here in the corner there. Do you see that?
Yes,
You then go to exhibit number 121. That's the area, right?
correct.
Well, describe for me what's going on. What's the action?
Another transfer pattern, the contact between a blood-bearing source and another surface in a
And-
linear fashion.
As they're going by?
Yes.
Right. Did that extend in this direction in any way at all?
No,
At this time, Jody's defense is self-defense. And I feel like that might have been
You know
a
where we're
bad
headed.
move.
Exhibit 78.
Yeah.
You see the number 2 there?
yes,
It wasn't me,
Exhibit number
probably would have been a
79
better defense.
Shows us that
Yeah.
corner there, right?
yes,
And
I'll be right
right
back.
there is what at that turn?
that transfer.
Yeah, because here can it be explained with, well, she has been there on numerous
Shows us-
occasions,
First of all, what is this part?
and
right
then
It
then you
appears
have
it could
the
be a
incriminating
transfer,
with
a-
the
What does
photos.
it lead to? This
It leads to, it's the lip of
But
the
there's
the
more or
shower.
less only
And
one
is that what the body was?
photo
Yes, it was.
in
So we
direct,
then see this right here, this reddish substance.
directly involved
Again, what does
with
that mean in terms of
the
lying
killing,
there at that place?
That's something, a bloodstain.
where
source
they
can be in
argued
contact with.
that is
And
her
is it the transfer pattern?
body
that you're talking
part
Consistent with the
seen
transfer,
in a particular
And,
photo.
about? Is this a swipe or not? I mean, we've used that. term
Also, maybe
Uh,
could have been explained away.
I would
But
not
they went
be able
with
to make
the
a determination of what was
self-defense,
there first thing that went
and
through
here
the-
we are.
The thing that made the contact with the shower was blood.
All right.
What did I know?
If we then go back to exhibit 121, I'm going to focus in on this area here. You see that right there?
I do.
What is that?
It's called a pattern transfer, where you can actually identify a pattern within a transfer stain.
And the pattern that you have there, is that consistent with a barefoot? Is that consistent with socks, or is that consistent with shoes?
It's consistent with a shoe tray.
So it's not consistent with a barefoot,
Correct.
and it's not consistent with a sock.
Correct.
So if we look at Exhibit 122, that's what we're looking at, right?
Yes.
And what's the direction of this particular stain?
It is-
Again, let me give you Exhibit 249. And I'll bring it in closer. It was right in this area, correct?
I think I just saw, can you lower it down a little bit? I think I saw where it says shoe tray right on the lid there, shoe impression. That makes
Okay.
sense, they're drawing.
Precisely
What was the
outline red.
direction of that print?
They have
This
to
is-
prove it is
so is-
not self-defense.
All right. And that's the direction of this footprint that we have here. If you could
Yes.
clear it out for me?
Yes, sorry.
Those diagrams are
Exhibit
demonstrative. People.
162.
Yeah.
See this right here?
Yes, I do.
Is that a shoe or is that a sock?
Appears to be a sock.
Would this sock make in Exhibit 122 this pattern?
No, it would not.
Go back to this photograph, Exhibit number 162. See that down there? What is that?
A foot.
Does that foot have a sock on there?
Doesn't appear to.
Does it have a shoe on there?
No, it does not.
Could that foot have made that?
Did I miss the hallway photo
Pattern
with the
that we see
sock
there.
in the
No,
body?
no.
What does it mean
No,
when
they're
this
just,
pattern is
going
in what,
through
blood,
it.
right?
Correct.
What does it
but I
mean
don't
in
think they
terms
showed
of
the.
individual
No.
who wore this shoe, in terms of the sequencing and how this blood could have arrived there,
That they were walking through the bathroom after blood was shed.
and after they were wearing shoes?
After they were, yes, correct.
I don't have any other questions.
Cross-examination.
Let's do it. She's got a weird shaped head, though.
The Jay Leno jaw is ruining it a bit. She's very cute.
I want to begin
Wild Red. I dressed
before
up
we
for
get into some of
Jody.
the other things you talked about. Talked about being at the crime scene, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And a few moments ago, I think recently enough, I want to show you the picture again. The state showed you a bit of blood that was on the lip of the shower.
Correct.
or the base of the shower, right?
Yes.
Okay. In the shower stall, the walls, everything that encased it, was there any blood found there?
On the floor only.
Okay, on the floor, not on the walls.
No,
Okay. And no traces of blood on any of the walls, correct?
no.
Testing, okay. Now, I just want to go back to Exhibit 249. I believe this will demonstrate things a little better than the photos. A few moments ago, Mr. Martinez showed you the pool of blood that is denoted that was in the carpet that's denoted by this area. Do you recall seeing that?
I did.
Okay. And he asked you some questions.
Yes,
about,
the number
if
of
there was any blood
stab
farther
wounds
inside the room
is a
than
clear
that
issue when you're arguing
the blood ended
self-defense.
in the pool,
Correct.
Yes.
And you mentioned
Especially
a few
with her
drops that were over towards the closet.
Order of
Correct.
operations as well.
But you said
Yeah.
there was no blood in the closet.
No blood in the closet.
And it seemed to me what the implication here was in terms of what
No,
you
it
were
was
saying is
January.
that
Mm.
someone
January
could
of
not have
2023.
walked through
I'm sorry, 2013.
blood-covered carpet.
Yeah.
into the
We
closet
concluded
without
that this defense attorney here has
It seems that, it seems.
3 sets
like a
of
lesser
matching
percentage.
shirt and tie.
So,
And then
ultimately
he
what we're really
starts to
saying, whether
switch
it's into the
them
closet or
around
not,
using a different tie with
no
a
one
different
would have walked
shirt.
through that pool of blood once it was deposited. Is that accurate?
Nobody would have walked through,
Walk through it because we would have seen signs of transfer, at least towards the room, I should say.
but towards the bedroom, I didn't see anything beyond that one little area. Whether somebody would walk through, I don't know.
Right, and if I was unclear, I apologize. But no, you wouldn't see, there's no evidence of somebody having walked through after that blood was deposited. Is that correct? That's all I have, thank you.
Oh,
Any redirect?
With regard to somebody either walking through that area into the bedroom, where have we looked at that has all of the blood in it?
It's all the blood is in the blood is in the master bathroom and that area of the carpet.
And in the master bathroom, is there something called water?
Yes,
Was water used in this case as part of an attempt by whoever it was to sort of
You
change?
can be
the
wherever
quality
you
of
want to
things?
be. It's not at all a competition. By the way, I have 43 watching.
Can you-
Shani
Can you restate the question?
put
Sorry.
up 2 streams,
Was-
but
could you read
both
that?
of them were your stream, David. Now she's on my stream as well.
That's awesome.
Water used in this case as part of an attempt by whoever it was.
That's
to
okay, Shani. That's
sort of
no-
change the matter.
I would
What
say
is
water did change the matter as to the motivation.
Can we back that up? Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you read it back to her?
Water used in this case as part of an attempt by whoever it was to sort of change the matter.
I would say water did change the matter as to the motivation. I wouldn't want to speculate on that, but water did alter what I saw.
And that water that was used in there, could that water also be used, for example, to wash, I don't know, hands? Could they also be done to do that?
Yes,
Could it also be done to, for example, clean feet? Could it be done to do that?
yes,
And water, do you know what a towel is?
yes.
Could a towel then, after water was used, could that be used to wipe up feet and hands and that sort of thing?
Sustained.
You were asked whether or not you saw anything or any other blood, well, exhibit 241.
Thank you, Wild Red, for the super
In this
chat.
area here.
Have a fiver. Thank you very much.
Correct. With regard to the properties of blood, is it difficult for water to clean them off the body, for example, the hands?
To wash blood off the hands?
Right.
No.
I don't have any other questions.
Looks like we have a few
So on
questions
cross,
from
the only
Yuri. Are there
question
any
was,
other
it was
questions?
about officers
Council, please.
potentially contaminating the crime scene. And she said she didn't notice anything, but she would make note of it if she did.
There. She's an expert witness. She is allowed to go in. That's as David explained earlier. It's a fine line between forming an opinion based on training and speculation, and that's up to the judge via an objection.
There was
to-
one objection, I believe, regarding speculation. In her opinion, they sidebarred, so we don't know exactly what happened there. But the jury wasn't giving any instructions, and it seemed like the prosecutor continued down the line of questioning. But this witness did very good with trying to stay away from the speculation. Like she just said, no, I'm not going to speculate as to the motive, the reason why, just what I observe.
Mhm. Yep, very good expert testimony so far in this trial. And that goes back to a previous stream where I'm starting to see a pattern starting with the OJ trial, where experts and witnesses were complete trash, and the prosecution was also complete trash, and that reformed more or less everything in the U.S. judicial system, how to collect evidence, how to do this, how to do that. And then you had an upward trend towards more or less this trial, where everything that was put in, more or less so far, was good evidence, good testimony, good experts. Now, after this, it has down spiraled again, which we saw in the
All right,
Zachariah
the jurors have
Anderson
some
trial
questions for
again.
you. Is it
whether-
possible for the shower to have been completely cleaned of blood on the walls and door with water?
It's a jury
It
question.
would
by the
wash
way.
away the appearance of it. So you wouldn't necessarily be able to see anything if you washed it, put enough water on it.
Would there have been some trace even if washed?
If we had done testing, we might have been able to prove that, yes.
They didn't do testing.
A way to measure the volume of blood in the rooms? And if so, where most of the blood was located?
As far as measuring a quantity of blood, it's really, I would say, more of a medical professional's opinion to be able to offer that. I could just say that it was an accumulation and there seemed to be quite a substantial amount of it, but I couldn't offer an opinion of how many milliliters it was.
Any other questions from the jury?
Those were good jury questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Nermi.
Did I hear you correctly? You didn't test anything else in the shower?
In the shower, I did not do any testing in the shower.
You mean Mesa Police Department?
Well, that I personally didn't conduct any testing. I don't know about other units.
Oh, thank you.
You may step down. The state may call its next witness.
Calls Detective Flores.
Nicholas, what gets more wet as it dries?
What becomes more wet
Yes.
when it dries?
As it dries.
Acid
Like the
drugs.
Stefan Flotis?
I don't know.
Yesterday, we were talking
towel.
about the statement that you had,
Oh,
with-
God.
or telephonic conversation that you had with the defendant.
That's so
June
Chad
27th,
was
stupid.
throwing it in the
2000.
reindeer got it.
Yes.
And during that time, did you and she discuss her knowledge of the PIN numbers used by Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
And does Exhibit 295, clip number 23, include that portion of the conversation?
Yes.
Yeah, we learned that from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Always bring your towel.
Okay.
I don't know if I've ever seen that movie.
It's a book and a movie.
I've seen the
Book
movie.
is-
Haven't read or seen either.
Okay. Yeah, if you haven't read the
295 is
book,
admitted.
then the movie is great. I've read the book ages ago, and it's still a decent movie, but yeah.
But I'm bump.
Okay. Can I?
This is the lead detective.
Okay. Lead detective.
I believe.
His voicemail from his phone.
No.
Did you ever obtain it at any time?
I didn't have it, but he had one PIN number that he always used, and that was 1220. I don't know if that was his voicemail PIN number too. Oh, and he had a garage PIN that I have too, which is different. His 1220 was his PIN for his ATM, because there were many times when he gave his card to go get money.
You think
And
he
that
has
was just-
his phone as well?
It's possible. I don't know what kind of, I mean, mine's not password protected. Oh, mine is password protected. Mine before it wasn't. So
Yes.
the
Hitchhiker's
one
Guide
for
to the
his,
Galaxy is
his
also a
ATM was
radio
his
play.
birthday, so that's how
I
I
can-
remember that.
I think you
And
can
then he
find
gave me the
that
garage
on
PIN number, which was,
YouTube.
017. And I think that was Chris Hughes' birthday.
Oh.
She kept calling the police
So as part of this
Yeah.
investigation,
to
were the police able to learn
assist.
that there were any roommates that Mr. Alexander had?
Yes, he had 2 roommates at the time.
And with regard to those 2 roommates, what are their names?
I cannot remember their names off the top of my head right now.
Do you know Zachary Billings? Do you-
Yes, Zachary Billings.
And Enrique was the other.
Yes.
With regard to those 2 individuals, did the police investigate their whereabouts at the time that this crime occurred?
Yes, we did.
And were you able to establish where they were at the time that this crime occurred?
Yes.
And were they associated in any way with this crime pursuant to your investigation?
They were not.
So did you have occasion to view the Inside Edition interview that the defendant gave in September of 2008? Were you able to view that?
Yes, I was.
With regard to that, were you able to listen as she discussed the issue of whether or not she had killed Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
And also whether or not any jury would convict her?
Yes.
Are those 2 excerpts, exhibits number 247 and 248?
No, so this was a phone call with a friend.
Yes, they were.
She called everybody and would talk to everyone to help and try to learn what the police knew.
Exhibits 247 and 248 are admitted.
So, listen to exhibit number 247.
Oh my God, I talked this whole time with being muted. So what I was saying is this officer has been on the stand before, the one that was just on, because he's being called out of order and he's being called to present evidence in more of a chronological order. That's what the prosecutor wants, and that's what the court has allowed. Yeah, thank you. You're telling me now you can't hear me after I turn my mic back on. Yeah, if you murder somebody, the talkie-talkie is a bad idea. Just don't talk. At the end of the day, don't talk to anybody.
All of the evidence against me right now is very compelling.
What really happened in there?
In a
Or the
nutshell,
news media.
2 people took Travis's life, 2 monsters.
You did not shoot Travis.
No, I've never even shot a real gun.
You did not stab him 27
I've
times
never, that's heinous.
or
I've never.
slit his throat from ear to ear.
I can't imagine slitting anyone's throat.
These are when her story was that 2 people broke in and attacked her and Travis. Left her alive
Look
for
at,
some reason.
Exhibit number 248.
She was very
No jury
fast.
will
She was.
convict me
Why not?
because I'm innocent, and you can mark my words on that one. No jury will convict me.
Oh,
No jury will convict. Don't tempt the jury during your jury trial.
yeah. Had she lawyered up by that time? And if she did, that was a
I don't have
Yeah,
any
but she'd
questions
gone
for
through a
this
couple of lawyers, so I don't know which one she had at the
Cross-examination.
time.
You may.
Mike, talkie to anybody is a bad idea because remember, those other people you talk to can talk to the police, and you have no control over that.
Yeah.
So you don't talk to anybody ever.
Yeah.
And if
And
you
even
want
if-
to not get caught, don't have a co-conspirator.
don't start off with not committing a crime,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah. And even if you're just a witness, lawyer up, because you never know when if you go from witness to suspect.
Wendy H says, I don't even allow my kids to talk to the principal without me being present. I tell my kids too, you don't talk to the principal or your teachers or the police or anybody without saying, I don't answer questions without my father, who is also my lawyer, being present. So call my lawyer now.
Yeah. It was yesterday. We heard some excerpts of a call you had with Miss Arias, I believe, on the 25th of June. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And I think we heard you say that entire conversation was about an hour and 45 minutes, the one we heard excerpts from.
Yeah, it was over an hour.
Okay. And during that phone conversation, you talked to her about how prior to her move, remember there was discussion about her move in April of 2008.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. And during that discussion, you talked about how she talked about how she lived with Mr. Alexander for 4 or 5 days. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. Was that anything you discussed with Mr. Alexander's roommates? Do you have any knowledge if they knew about that or not?
No, I did not ask them about that.
Okay. And during that same line of questioning, I guess, when she talked about moving back home to Wairika, there was some discussion about phone calls or phone contacts she had with Mr. Alexander subsequent to moving back to Wairika. Do you recall that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And do the phone records bear that out? The phone records you obtained bear that out, that the two were conversing after she returned in April?
I would have to look at the phone records to be absolutely positive.
Okay.
I know they had constant contact back and forth with each other.
Okay. And there wasn't a point in time where that ceased for a long period of time, it would seem, right?
No.
Okay. So I guess we could assume then that probably took place in April, May of 2008, right? That phone contact.
Could have.
Okay. Now, there was also another case mentioned around the same time period.
I'm
Ms. Arias
contracted
mentioned
via
she
the
crashed
union,
his car.
so you have
Yes,
to
recall
be
that. And I just wanted to
be
put it
in my
context
specific
because of the
union
excerpt
for
we
me
were
to be
talking
able
about,
to represent
an
you in
incident
any
where a
way,
U-Haul
shape, or form.
Dolly was involved
Yeah.
and the engine exploded. That's what we're talking about, isn't it?
Yes, it was an accident.
Okay.
I thought you were in David's attic.
Talk to you. Well, let's.
No, Farrell's hiding in my attic. Jung's hiding in your
Because I think you
barn.
probably told us this the first time you
Okay.
took the stand, but could you remind us again how long you've worked for the Mason Police Department?
19 years.
Okay. And how long you've been a detective?
For about since 2002.
Okay. So I'm guessing when.
Forming
way
a
back when,
lawyers
19 years ago, when you
union must
started
be
as a
the
patrol
one
officer, I'm
most
assuming?
difficult
Yes.
unions to form.
That you went through the academy, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And while you were at the academy, you probably learned the importance of report writing,
Yes.
correct? And when I say report, we're talking about departmental reports. Sometimes we call them DRs.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. And one of the things you probably learned is it's important to be honest and accurate as possible in those police reports because they could be used later on in proceedings such as these, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And I suspect, and detective's a promotion, correct?
Not really in my department. It's more just like a lateral
Okay.
move. It's a specialty.
Okay, it's a special unit. But over the course of your career, I suspect you attempted to endeavor in becoming a detective. You expected to endeavor to make the most accurate and honest police report you could. Is that fair to
Yes.
say? Okay.
Yes.
Have you reviewed your police report recently, detective?
Within the last few weeks. Yes.
Okay. Well, let me maybe get a copy of it for you.
That's a weird font. I don't know what the question was.
Your Honor, if I may approach.
Yes.
Detective, it appears your report has been marked.
Yes, a large cube chat union is much easier to unite.
Do me
Yeah.
a favor, and I opened it to page 17 for you. Read all the way, the portion of begins with autopsy and ending at the portion just to yourself begins with initial interview with Chris and Scott. Could you review that for me, please? Sure.
You said beginning with autopsy?
Yes, I believe that's the very bottom of page 17. And the autopsy goes to the middle of page 18.
Okay, things are going on in the chats here. All right. Is he reading something?
I was muted. That 199 is a weird comment. I'm surprised it pulled up in here. It's not in the live chat. I was looking for it, and it's actually a comment on my video.
And based on what we read there,
Oh.
it appears that you
So
attended
I don't know what's up with that.
the autopsy of Mr. Alexander
So-
on 6/12 of 2008. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Sometimes these doesn't show up on regular streams. I will check my.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's not at all in the live chat. It's a
I do.
comment.
Mhm.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I have here $1.99 a message content that hasn't been shown. It's from Moon Baby. No, that's from yesterday. Sorry. So
No,
no, I
yeah.
don't have anyone.
No, it's weird.
Yeah.
And just so we're clear as well, I see on your report,
State your question.
it appears you authored your report on August 27th, of 2008. Is that correct?
All right, you may answer.
Yes, August 27th.
Okay. And just so we're clear, is that the day you wrote it, or do you is that the date it's finalized? How does that work?
That's the day it was, this section of the report, or this portion of it, was entered into our report management system.
Okay. So prior to writing a report, you take notes, something of that nature?
Yes, yeah,
Okay. And then you get together at a certain point in time and put it together.
yes,
And the final draft, so to speak, is what we're talking about of 8/27/2008.
yes, and it gives it that timestamp of when it was finally entered.
All right. And in that report, you communicate, or it seems like you learned the fact that
Objection, hearsay is a quote from the report, improper impeachment.
Restate your question.
Right, and finished it, but it appears that you came away from that autopsy with the knowledge or with the belief that Mr. Alexander had been shot first. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you base that on your conversation with Dr. Horn, excuse me.
With my observations through the observation window and also with a small conversation with the doctor.
Okay.
That's Jodi's argument for some reason. That she shot him first and then stabby.
And then you
Which
recall,
I believe the other way around works better for her.
2009, giving some testimony in court related to this case.
Yes, it's almost a year later.
Yes.
She claims she shot him in self-defense, and then he still launched at her. So she grabbed the knife and stabby, slicey. Yeah, I do think the other way around might have worked better as a self-defense. That he attacked her, she got a hold of a knife and stabby, slicey. He kept going at her, and then she found the gun.
Yeah, I think that's a better argument, right?
Remember what you said exactly. As you pointed out, it was almost a year later to the police report.
I can talk about that if you want to pause it.
Yeah.
But you were under oath when you...
So when you are questioning a witness, in this case, cross-examining a witness, and you say, isn't it true that you believe that he was shot first, like they're doing here? And he was like, no. He was stabbed first and then shot. They're like, well, earlier you had stated in your report that you believed he was shot first, right? So that's the impeachment. Contradicting him with an earlier statement that is contradictory to his testimony is impeachment. And there's a certain way you can do it. You can refresh recollection. You first have to ask the questions. You can't just say, well, I have a document here that says otherwise. That's improper impeachment. You have to establish the foundation or have to establish the fact that, like, you can't walk up and say, in this report that you drafted, like out of the blue, no questions have been prior to this. In this report that you drafted, you say that that he was shot first, right? That's improper impeachment because there's no prior statement to impeach him with. I hope that makes sense. You first have to have him answer wrong or different than the prior document, then you can impeach him. That's what their objection was.
Yeah, so. More or less, a Matlock moment is often an improper impeachment.
Okay, definitely.
Yeah, in a way, because you put the assailant or defendant or witnesses on the stand, but I have this.
Yeah.
And,
those are improper impeachment moments.
Yeah, if that happened if that happened in a real trial, the judge would have words, and the prosecution would have words, or the defense would have words about
Murph's.
That.
By the way, Caitlin Armstrong's been delayed to October, so I was going to cover it, but the case is delayed.
Okay. Yeah. Let's move on.
You gave this testimony, right?
Yes.
Okay. If you could be so kind, let's see here, as to turn to page 18 of that document. And I'll draw your attention to line 14.
Yes.
And for you younger people in the audience, a Matlock moment means Matlock was a TV series in the 80s and 90s.
He was always famous for representing the murdered defendants that didn't actually do it and finding the actual perpetrator by the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And that was his Matlock moment.
Yeah. I found this.
Think Legally Blonde, where the daughter confesses.
Yeah.
At the end of the trial, that sort of stuff that happened every week in Matlock.
What was that other show, Matlock? You had one other.
I know what you're talking about. God, I can't remember it. Yeah, Perry Mason.
Perry Mason, yeah.
Yeah, Perry Mason Moments too is also a thing. Yeah. But that was like the 70s and the 80s. That was prior to Matlock. I remember Matlock.
Yeah, but Perry Mason had a revival in the early noughts as well, I think.
You were asked if you had spoken to Dr. Horn about this case. Is that correct?
Objection, improper impeachment.
Overruled. You may answer that question.
Yes,
And you recall the answer you gave?
I stated I did.
Okay. And when did that conversation take place?
A day prior to this hearing.
Okay. So your conversation with Dr. Horn then would have took place on August 6, 2009.
Yes,
Okay. And you were in court for his testimony, correct?
I don't recall if I was or not.
Okay.
Diagnosis murder.
Did you hear him testify to the idea that he didn't
Parents
talk to
watch
you
that.
on August 6, 2009?
Dr. Horn's statement, he said he doesn't remember.
Thank you. I thought I'd dress up for Jody today.
All right. So your testimony was that you spoke to Dr. Horn.
He's
One day
hoping
before
for
he
the
gave his
crossed
testimony.
legs to move.
Are you talking about this?
I'm hoping to
Yes.
entice them.
Not testimony today, but testimony here. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. And in that testimony,
Yeah, it's
you were
just
asked
like
about
DNA
sequencing
evidence
of
in
injuries
CSI
with
comes
Dr. Horn.
back
Is that correct?
before
Yes,
the episode is over.
And you were asked about, in terms of sequencing, which came first, which wound came first, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you recall what your answer was?
I answered that the gunshot was possibly first.
Okay.
Is that in my
And what
chat?
did you base your answer on?
I'd spoken to Dr. Horn the day before over the phone on a short conversation, knowing that I was having a hearing on this matter, and discussed mainly what kind of pain the victim would have gone through at that time if the
What? Have they done a pre-lawyer Perry Mason put in the past, but with today's politics? Oh God, that must be horrible. I will not watch that show. I have fond memories of Perry Mason, and I will not have them ruined. It's not real trial or real law, but it's still entertaining. So no, I will not watch that show. Jesus Christ.
victim had suffered at that time, those kinds of questions. And
Okay.
during that, we kind of discussed some other things, and one of them was very briefly the sequencing.
Okay. You say very briefly, but this would be important if you're giving sworn testimony in court, right?
The sequencing was not that
David,
important in this.
should we do a Perry Mason
So you
revival just
felt
to
it wasn't
mock
important to
it
give accurate testimony in court
We
in
could.
court
on,
proceedings? Is that what you're
on
telling me?
Discord? On
No,
your
that's not
Discord,
what-
just watch it
The
and
most important portion was
annihilate it.
whether the victim,
That would be
Travis
fun.
Alexander, suffered in
So
this.
me
become a
ask you, what's the
member
most
to
important
David,
portion?
and you
Let's focus on
can
what I
maybe
asked.
watch
What
me
I
and
asked
David.
was whether or not it was important to give accurate testimony when you're testifying in a court.
Yes.
Yeah, we could do that,
And you did
definitely.
testify to the
Yeah.
idea that the gunshot
Yeah,
wound
that
to the head
would be
was first, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But we can do members only streams, can't we?
And you went
Oh,
on,
yeah,
you
well-
were asked also in that hearing, and you also talked
But I
about
think the problem
unconsciousness
is
and that sort of thing.
we still might be copyrighted claimed if
Yeah.
we do it on YouTube. We could do it
Yeah.
on Rumble, or we could do it in the Discord. But if we
Mm.
stream it on YouTube, even if it's members only, we still get struck, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
Stupid
Okay.
YouTube.
Stupid
Watching
YouTube.
you.
But you also talked about whether or not after incurring the shot to the head, Mr. Alexander could be conscious. Do you recall being asked that?
Yes.
Okay. And you relayed, do you recall relaying the opinion that Mr. Alexander would be conscious after being suffering the shot to the head?
Yes, but that was my opinion at that time.
That was your opinion, but you weren't relaying Dr. Horn's opinion, as you said during those transcripts, you're relaying your
I
own?
would say that was my understanding of what the situation was, but I'm not the doctor. I'm not the ultimate decision maker on that.
So your claim here today is that when you were at this important proceeding in this death penalty case, you were giving your opinion as to what you thought Dr. Horn might think, as opposed to when you were testifying, you told the parties involved there that you'd spoken to him and this is what he believed.
That was my understanding.
That was actually interesting.
So, do you want some insider baseball from the book, or do you want to just leave it at what we're seeing here?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So the prosecutor was saying, specifically when he was talking about the gas cans, when he first kind of discovered or he was rewatching the interview with the boyfriend or the ex-boyfriend that she borrowed the gas cans from, and then was going through the receipts and discovered the gas cans and did all the calculation and stuff. She said, or he said, I'm not telling that witness on the stand, his lead detective. He's like, I'm not going to tell him, because if I tell him, he has to put it in a report. And if he puts it in a report, then Jodi's going to see it with her defense team and she's going to come up with an excuse. So there's a lot that the prosecutor was thinking in his mind as far as trial strategy and thoughts on this that he didn't tell his investigator because he didn't want it to go into a report. And I think that's what they were trying to get at. Just
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's other stuff too, but that was just one example.
Oh, that's a little shady, but
right. It's interesting. Isn't it?
Yeah, trial strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking so far ahead. Yeah,
very much so.
You also gave opinions about that supported this theory that Mr. Alexander had been shot first, correct?
Yes, I do recall that.
Okay. I mean, specifically, you talked about that he aspirated blood over the sink, correct?
Yes, I do remember that.
And what does that mean?
Aspirated blood means blood being aspirated through the mouth and through the nose and onto an object such as the sink or the mirror in this case.
Okay. So now you said, oh, it was your misunderstanding of Dr. Horn's testimony and that sort of thing. And you said you weren't sure if you were here in court, but in these court proceedings, is this the first you heard of a different story being told about when the wounds occurred?
No.
You've heard about it before?
Yes, during Dr. Horn's testimony.
Okay.
I thought you were talking about another testimony Dr. Horn gave, but I was here during his testimony the other day.
Okay. So during this trial, Dr. Horn's testimony, you were here, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay. I want to be accurate this time. And you heard him testify then that he hadn't spoken with you the day before the hearing, correct?
Objection. States his testimony. He said he didn't know.
Sustained.
You heard him also testify that says some of the things that we just talked about not losing consciousness, how that was something that he would never have said. You heard him say that?
Yes.
Okay. But that's what you testified to at the hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
interesting.
And so this change of story is something that you first heard about at trial.
No, it's not the first time I've heard of it.
Okay. When was the first time you heard this story changed?
I don't remember. It might be several months ago or a year ago.
What was the context?
I don't recall exactly, but I know Dr. Horn had gone and given an interview, I guess, with you and defense counsel, and something came out to me informing me of what he stated during the interview.
Okay. Did you make any attempts to correct the mistaken testimony you gave in 2009?
No, because I told the truth and spoke to what I believed at that time. I'm not about to change my testimony.
But it was inaccurate.
It was not inaccurate. It was mistaken.
Mistaken.
And that's my mistake if I mistook his words or misunderstood him. But I am not a doctor, and I'm not about to give testimony on.
So he's impeaching him.
I'm not saying that at all.
On testimony he gave during the preliminary examination. And just so people know, when you're charged with a crime in most states, if you're not charged with a grand jury, or maybe even if you're charged with a grand jury, he's talking. She was charged with a grand jury. I take that back. So he's talking about his testimony to the grand jury, which is one-sided. Now, if the testimony was a mistake in front of the grand jury, shouldn't it go then back down to the grand jury to see if she should be bound over again? That's the problem I have with the system, is that they can be mistaken. He's like, oh, I'm not going to change my testimony, but you're testifying differently now. So, so this is a proper way to impeach. I'm not sure it's going to be effective.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, generally speaking, I don't really like the grand jury system at all. Because for me, it's more prejudicial than probative towards the defendant.
It is. And at least with the, so the other system would be is that the prosecutor files a complaint against you, a paper complaint, and then you have a preliminary examination, which at least then the defendant is participating in and can bring in her own witnesses and challenge the state's evidence at that preliminary examination. There's no challenging of evidence. There's no defense participation. They don't even know what's going on. It's done completely secret.
Yeah, and this is what's going on in the Andrew Tate case now, when the state has decided we want this to go to trial. They have now handed over to a judge who will go through defense, prosecution, to see, is this enough to go to trial to reach a verdict in a trial?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then, so he has up to 60 days. So ultimately, it is a judge that decides, is this according to law? He doesn't look at what facts are in, but is it everything according to law? If, for instance, know that evidence, they have these preliminary writings where the defense says that can come in, the state says they can't say that, stuff of that sort.
Right. Well, I mean, at the preliminary examination, hearsay is allowed to be used, but at least you can still then cross-examine. So,
yeah. But so within 60 days, we know if this judge in Romania approves of it going to trial. Meanwhile, Mr. Tate and his alleged accomplices are still in house arrest. So we will see within 60 days. And then when those 60 days are up to 60 days, then they have to set a trial date. So I would assume we are somewhere in October, November before it's an actual trial in the Tate case.
Cool.
Yeah.
Too bad we can't stream it live, right?
But I'm saying, and we just talked about it, about the importance of giving accurate
No,
testimony.
no
And in this
sound.
hearing,
I have
you
to
were
wait
asked
for the court
specifically,
papers
if you talked
to
Dr.
come
Horn,
out, and
you
that
said
can
yes.
be a
You were
week
asked
later.
if Dr. Horn had an opinion of the sequencing of the injuries, right?
Yes.
They didn't ask you, what do you think, Detective Flores? What's your medical opinion? They didn't ask you that, did they?
No.
They asked you, what was Dr. Horn's opinion? And that's a pretty simple question, straightforward, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so what you're telling us today is that you substituted your judgment for his? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
No, if I gave that testimony, it was a misunderstanding of what Dr. Horn told me.
It's an innocent misunderstanding. See, this is why perjury is such a hard charge to get to. So imagine this is just like a lay witness, right? And you want to cross-examine this person, and then say the state wants to bring this person up on charges of perjury. How do you prove perjury with this exact situation? You can't, right? Oh, it's just a misunderstanding. How do you prove that around? That's the problem with perjury.
So it's inaccurate, is what you're saying today.
Yes.
Okay. And that's what I asked you a few moments ago. Did you take any steps to correct your inaccurate testimony? And you said, no, it wasn't inaccurate. It was a misunderstanding.
Yes.
I'm confused. Well, is it inaccurate or is it a misunderstanding? Which is it?
Well, it's a misunderstanding of what Dr. Horn told me.
Okay. It's a pretty big one, isn't it?
No, I don't believe so.
You don't believe so? Okay.
Well, if shot first or last,
Judge, if
that's
we could
quite big.
Take a break at this point in time.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take the afternoon recess at this time. Please be back in the designated area at 10 minutes after 3. Please remember the admonition. You are excused.
Well, just to answer Gigi's question out loud, I don't know if the grand jury is allowed to ask questions because we don't really use them in Michigan. We have like one every 10 years, and I've never done one. So I have no idea. I just know that the states or the defense is not involved. The defense doesn't know what's happening. You can get access to the transcripts later and understand what testimony was admitted, but that's it.
Is Romania known for fair trials? Romania has improved significantly the last decade. From when they were liberated from communism, the first 20 years was quite a cluster F. But they have improved severely since when they joined the European Union and got under the statute of the EU chapter of human rights, chapter 5, that regulates how fair, how our legal systems work. They still have some work to do, but all in all, I would put them mid-range in the European Union of a good judicial system. where Hungary is at the bottom and Sweden is on the top. Oddly enough.
How do you pronounce the old dictator's name? I can't remember.
Ceausescu.
Ceausescu, yes.
Yeah.
Christmas Day, 1989, as I was opening my presents,
Hmm.
they were being disposed of. Him and
Yep.
his wife.
Yeah, it was a very swift trial and subsequent execution of Ceausescu and his wife. And it was, that was an interesting time in European politics when the Berlin Wall fell and the Iron Curtain fell.
Yeah, between like 88 and 91, 92. That was
it was
stuff going on.
Yeah, and I remember when the Berlin Wall, when they actually started to, can we destroy it?
It was,
don't. Oh, we can.
All of it was by accident.
Yeah.
It was like a miscommunication about opening or, what to do with the gate. And someone was like, oh, they want us to open it. Okay, we'll open the gate. And literally it was a miscommunication. And that's what led to everyone going back and forth and then the wall coming down and everything.
Yeah. It was a miscommunication between Eastern Germany, who the leadership, can't recall his name now, and the border control.
Yep.
And somehow it took over 24 hours for the correct decision to come to the border control. And by then, the wall was already torn down. It was glorious.
Reindeer, is that a question or a statement? Germany built the wall.
Yeah, they did after World War II.
Eastern Berlin did.
Yeah. Yeah. It went through West and East Berlin. Yeah. But West Berlin was in East Germany. They have to fly in and out of West Berlin.
And there was one point where, they were able to take roads, but at one point it was closed off and they had to do airdrops for supplies in the 50s or something. Yeah, it was a messy situation.
Yeah. And very happy the Iron Curtain went down and most of communism disappeared.
Best misunderstanding ever. Yeah, I agree. That was the best misunderstanding. Well, the question really is was it really a misunderstanding or did the Border Patrol just claim it as a misunderstanding?
That's a question for historians to decide.
Right.
But just between 1956 or 7 and 1990, around between 25 and 30,000 people tried to escape East Germany and lost their lives. So
there was a guy who made it in a balloon. Maybe I should tell that story once.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's a very interesting story. I might tell that.
Mm-hmm. But we are here for Jodi.
Record will show the presence of the jury, defendant, and all counsel. Mr. Nurmi, you may continue with cross-examination.
Detective, this hearing on August 29th, who is representing the state at that hearing?
29th or August 7th. Is that what you're talking about?
August 7th, I'm sorry if I said another date, I apologize. August 7th, 2009, who is representing the state?
I believe it was Mr.
Goes to Miller and Bias.
Overruled, you may answer. You may.
That was overruled, and then he now wants to approach, so he wants to continue his objection. See, most judges would be like, no, it's overruled. We're moving on. He can ask the question.
If the jury could ask questions, Zach would be free.
Possibly.
But I don't know. But it helps both the prosecution and the defense to know where the jury is headed.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get every thought in their minds, but at least you can get some sort of opening because otherwise you're just talking to a wall and you have no idea what the wall is thinking. At least here you have a glimmer of maybe a hint.
Yeah. And thank you so much for the $1.99 20th Century Fox. Thank you so much.
The jury probably pissed this lawyer ate all of their lunch. If you see him now, though, he lost so much weight.
Yeah.
The problem with losing weight when you get older, though, is you look a lot wrinklier.
Yep.
You got to lose the weight before you get wrinkly.
Yeah. And I don't know what will happen if I lose the 50 pounds. No, not 50. 30 pounds I'm overweight.
I could lose 50 pounds. That'd be good. I'd be happy with that. I sit in front of this stupid computer all the time, though.
Now, I everything below, if I'm 6'3", if I go below 200 pounds, that's just feminine. I mean,
you got to get into those tight pants.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I want to tell us, walking around Stockholm last year, I just had regular blue jeans on and like a sweater, and walking around, and it's clear, like everyone knew I was an American. I don't know why. So I went and bought Swedish pants and a Swedish sweater and a Swedish jacket. And all of a sudden, nobody knew that I was American. It's amazing. Like the styles are just different enough.
Yeah.
That you could pull that off. But the pants are skinnier. That's what I noticed over in Europe.
Yeah. The skinny jeans. I
not skinny jeans, but they're like skinnier. I don't know. They're shaped different.
Okay. Now I'm having straight jeans. That's it. Because tailored things on me looks just stupid. So I buy my size and I fill it out. So that's what I like with the yellow suit that Drunk Me bought for me, because it has stretch pants. Nice. Yeah, I can do it. That would be my new buffet suit, because everything stretches. Oh.
Okay. Who is the prosecutor? Who represents? Who is the prosecutor? Who represents the state at that hearing?
Was Mr. Martinez?
Okay. And earlier you testified that you said it was a misunderstanding or your mistake. Your testimony that day was a mistake, right?
No, my testimony wasn't a mistake. The portion of sequencing was a misunderstanding I had with Dr. Horn.
Okay. Well, you were asked some pretty specific questions. You were asked if it was Dr. Horn's opinion that this rendered the victim unconscious, or did he still remain conscious? That's a pretty specific question, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you answered, he said it would have possibly rendered the victim unconscious, but definitely could have been conscious, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You also said, or you were asked, but in the circumstance based on all the other injuries, it was his opinion that it did not render him unconscious, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you say that you misunderstood that, you misunderstood.
That's really interesting, because if that was the story up until this trial, I can understand why they formed their defense around it. And all of a sudden in trial, that doctor has a completely different testimony, that the gunshot would render him unconscious immediately.
Yes, and that is why maybe that's why the defense went with the timeline that they went, but I still feel like spur of the moment, okay, cool, we got a better timeline, or a series of events anyways, because it's better for our self-defense claim.
Yeah.
I don't know why they wouldn't have just switched with it and gone with it.
Yeah. Could this have been a possible mistrial moment?
No, I don't think so. It's not a mistriable moment, because there's no like improper conduct. The defense, it's not like they're hiding evidence or anything like that. They're changing their testimony, and just like Jodi can get up there and say whatever she wants to, or their witnesses can say whatever they want. It's not really a mistrial.
But now I understand why they went with this defense, based on the preliminary hearing testimony. I see that more clearly now. because this was a bit unexpected. I didn't know about the lead investigator in the preliminary hearing giving testimony about the doctor's opinion, which was clearly the opposite from what was presented in trial.
So if they were going with someone else did it, then the gunshot wound being first, and then the stabby, and then the dragging of a unconscious body back to the shower might be good because she's small and he's bigger. But with the self-defense, I think you need the stabby first.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where they got
Dr.
tripped
Horn,
up.
That's
I
your
don't know.
testimony here today, right?
Conversation I had with him prior to that hearing, I had spoken to him regarding the anguish, the amount of pain, the suffering that Travis would have gone through that
I'm
day.
going to object. It's non-responsive and 403.
Sustained.
Can you repeat the question?
Defense is
I'm
getting some
asking
good
you, claiming
objections
that
here.
what you said in that was a misunderstanding of Dr. Horn's, your conversation with Dr. Horn.
Yes.
That's what it was.
Yes.
And, you know, we've seen Ms. Arias have interviews on television. You gave one as well, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And do you recall who that was for?
Play his interview.
I believe it was CBS.
Okay. And my recollection, you would probably know better than I, but that appeared to be a pretty lengthy interview. Is that correct?
Hour or so, maybe.
Over an hour, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
And in that particular occasion, you offered the same theory that Mr. Alexander had been shot first. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And you did that on a couple of different occasions. Is that right?
Yes, that's what I believed.
Okay. And so, but this was based on your misunderstanding of Dr. Horn. That's what you're telling us, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so you repeated this misunderstanding. You put this misunderstanding first in your police report, right?
Yes.
And second time under oath and giving sworn testimony, you perpetrated the same misunderstanding. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then again, you did it while being interviewed on national television. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I believed.
Okay. Thank you, Detective.
Oh, play his interview.
Redirect.
I wanted to see his interview.
Sir, with regard to the police report, that was shown to you in terms of the
This
sequence.
is one of the things we can do afterwards,
Take a look at it again.
Yeah.
And see whether or
when the
not
trial is done.
anywhere in Exhibit
or when
290,
we have watched the trial done.
starting with DA 00018, and then going to the previous page, which is 17, whether or not you ever indicate a sequencing of interest, ever.
Yeah. Sweet drinks, yeah, those add pounds.
No.
It doesn't indicate that, does it?
No, it does not.
In fact, with regard to that, do you talk about the wounds that the victim received, yes or no?
Yes, I do.
Do you talk about the lacerations and the puncture wounds and the length that they might be?
Yes.
Do you talk about whether or not there was stippling to those wounds?
Yes.
Do you talk about a report as to which injuries may have been fatal or not?
Yes.
Do you also talk about the knife wounds in the back and how far they went in?
Yes, I did.
Do you talk about
He's
whether or not those were
always
fatal?
angry.
Yes.
He's like
Do you talk about whether
a
or not
mini
the victim
Hulk
had any
whethout
defensive wounds to him?
the
Yes,
Do you talk about whether or
transformation.
not he attempted to protect himself during the attack?
I did.
Do you talk about whether the fatal wounds consisted of stab wounds to the center of the chest? Did you talk about that?
Yes.
Did you talk about what damage that wound caused?
Yes, I did.
And did you talk about whether or not the wound to the throat was fatal?
Yes.
And then you also talked about the manner of death, whatever that may have been, right?
Correct.
Yeah, the
Anywhere
prosecutor
there, did
gets
you talk
all
about any
excited.
sequencing at all?
There's no sequencing in there at all.
And this was written when? Why don't you tell me again when this was written?
It was written in August of that year.
2008?
Yeah, but that's in his report. What did he actually testify to?
Actually
Yeah.
written.
It was written and submitted on August 27th of 2008 at 4:29 p.m.
Yeah, but if
So
it's
where do you
contrary,
indicate
what he testifies
Do you ever
under oath,
indicate anywhere here
that's more,
that
that's
Dr. Horn said
the
or
evidence,
gave you a
not
sequencing
the report.
No.
or injuries, I'm sorry, do you?
No.
With regard to Exhibit 260, that was a hearing in which you testified at, correct?
Yes, it was.
It was under oath, wasn't it?
Yes.
Prior to that hearing, did you speak to Dr. Horn?
Yes, a day prior.
With regard to speaking to Dr. Horn, did you speak to him about
Opening
any
door?
potential suffering by the victim.
That was the main focus.
Overruled to that question.
With regard to that particular conversation that you had, and the defense attorney, was it somebody else at that time?
Yes.
And there
Yes.
was,
Yes, it was.
and there was more than one, wasn't there?
Yes.
And with regard to that, you were asked about Dr. Horn. The question was, he did indicate that he was not certain as to which came first, correct?
Correct.
And you were asked as to which injuries the belief was came first. Do you remember being asked that?
Yes.
And do you remember then that the defense attorneys objected because you didn't know what you were talking about? Do you remember that?
Overruled.
Do you remember them objecting to foundation because you didn't know what you were
Oh my
talking about?
God.
Yes,
Settle
I do.
down, man.
Are you a medical doctor?
No, I'm not.
But you were allowed to testify anyway, right?
Yes.
Because of the type of hearing that it was, wasn't it?
Yes.
And was it your understanding, just your understanding, that whether or not hearsay was allowed at that hearing?
Question was his understanding?
His understanding.
Overruled.
Yes.
And could you tell us what you thought Dr. Horn had said?
I thought Dr. Horn.
Yeah, but you could tell us what you thought Dr. Horn said, right?
Yes,
And you told us what you thought he said, right?
I did.
Were you correct?
No, I was not.
And with regard to the opinion that you gave, prior to giving that opinion, you know who Lisa Perry is, don't you?
Yes.
Who is she?
She works for the Mason Police
Someone
Department
give
now.
him a Snickers.
And Lisa Perry, did you talk to her before rendering that opinion back in August of, what was it, 2009?
Yes.
Did you talk to her?
I talked to her on many occasions, yes.
But did you talk to her in anticipation of that hearing?
Yes.
And did she give you any opinions that you incorporated? Yes or no?
Yes, a few.
And still you went ahead with what you thought was your opinion, right?
Yes.
And your
He's
opinion was based
he's
on
badgering the
conversations with
witness.
Dr.
It's his
Horn.
witness,
Those
right?
conversations with Dr. Horn, were they recorded?
No, they were not.
And were they in person or telephonic?
Telephonic.
And the majority of the time, what was the subject area that you were spent talking about?
The suffering of the victim.
Did he ever write anything to you, giving you the sequence of events?
No, he never did.
Did you ever see anything written by him indicating anything of the sequencing of events?
No.
But did you testify to that, sir?
So the bottom line, that information that you gave, whose opinion was it? Was it yours or Dr. Horn's?
It was my opinion.
I don't have anything else.
Lefty, thank you for the
You may.
gifted memberships. Lauren B, TG, Helen Spur, Meline, and Jan Anderson all got gifted memberships. Welcome everyone to the membership. Click on my membership tab if you want to get access to the Discord, which is where I do most of my membership stuff, is in Discord. We carry on a lot of conversations about the trials we're covering, Jodi Arias and other things in there. We have all of Jodi Arias and cookies in Discord. So we do watch parties too. We do a movie night where we watch, like last night, it was Jamie's birthday. So we did Jamie's pick of a movie night. But we usually do that once a month and a bunch of other stuff. So check out the Discord. If the link doesn't work, shoot me an email, let me know, but we'll get it set up for you. And thank you, Lefty,
Are
for
there
the
any questions
gifted
from the
membership.
jury for this witness? You may step down. The state may call its next
No
witness.
jury questions after that.
Okay.
All right. Conversations, is that what we call it? Yeah. So sometimes the conversations can devolve into a series of ever competing memes, I guess. But Discord's a lot of fun. At least the people
Yeah.
in there seem to be having fun.
Let's see who the next witness is.
Wendy, thank you for the Cash App payment. Thank you very much.
Okay, this is a new one.
Can you spell your first and last name?
She looks very tan.
Legg. Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please walk around and have a seat.
Is she culturally appropriating? Maybe it's just the lighting. We'll see.
Your name, please,
Jody Legg.
and who do you work for?
I work for the City of Mesa Crime Lab.
What do you do there at the crime lab?
I'm a forensic scientist 3. I work in the biology department.
And what do you do there in the biology
So-
department?
I specifically analyze
Jody's legs.
evidence for the presence of DNA. Helps to get a DNA profile.
One of the things that we've learned earlier today is that there's a screener that's involved. Right?
Oh,
You know
that
what
was
a
good.
screener is.
That was
Yes.
good.
What is a screener? Well, are you the same thing as a screener?
When we say screener, another term for that is serologist.
Right.
And the screener or the serologist is the person that actually looks at the evidence up front and decides what areas to swab or to cut in order to send through to DNA. And so prior to moving
I
on to
like my
DNA, you would be
stupid green
trained,
lefty.
all people would be trained as a serologist. And so, yes, I am a screener and a DNA analyst.
How does your job differ from that of a screener?
My job as a DNA analyst, I accept the evidence from the screener and then perform DNA analysis on that particular item. I don't necessarily look at each item and decide what area to cut or swab.
What is your educational background, for example, your college background?
How much longer do we have on this day?
Training.
20
I have
minutes.
a Bachelor
So,
of Science
we are cutting
degree
it
from
close.
SLU in Louisiana. I have numerous classes in
I'm
chemistry and
doing
biology,
1.25,
postgraduate
so we
level,
have a few minutes
and
before
in-house training and external training.
next before
How long have
my
you been in the position that you're in where you've actually done DNA
midsummer
testing?
stream.
I have been with the City of Mesa since 2004. Prior to that, I have 15 years of experience as a research chemist, not in a forensics field.
And with regard to DNA.
Well, then this Jody
maybe
leg
sort of know
is
what that
not
but
going to be
what
of
is
any
DNA?
interest to
What does it
Baker.
stand for?
DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It's actually the genetic information that is held inside our cells, in the nuclei of the cells. Comes from our mother and father. It's inherited.
We all learned
And-
this in Jurassic
Well, my
Park.
question is this, everyone has this DNA.
I
Everyone
have a
has DNA.
shower curtain
And,
roughly
just by
that.
way of illustration only, doesn't everybody have, for example, one hand, 2 arms, 2 legs, that sort of thing, 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth, right?
Correct. For the most part, all of us are very much alike. There's only a very small portion of our DNA that is completely unique to us.
So I guess what I'm asking is, the type of work that you do, what is it that you do that allows you to, for example, differentiate the biological substance from that of somebody else, if most of the DNA is the same?
The specific locations that we look at in forensic DNA analysis are locations that would be specific to an individual.
So those are the ones that, if you look at, they're the ones that differentiate that individuals amongst ourselves. Is that how it works?
Those are the very low percentage of locations that are differentiated.
And if you want to, once you do this process, what does the result look like? Is it a graph that goes up and down? Is it numbers? Is it in writing? Exactly what is it that is the end result of the examination?
You will have a graphic representation and numbers. So you'll have peaks with numbers underneath.
With regard to the peaks and the numbers underneath, are you the one that actually interprets the peaks, or is that just automatically done by machine?
The instrumentation will provide the graphs for you. Then the analyst looks at it and compares it to known graphs and numbers to decide if there's a match or not.
And what area of, we're looking at chromosomes, right?
Correct.
Certain areas. How many areas of the chromosome do we look at?
16 different locations.
Right. Do you also look at the sex marker, as they call it?
Yes, it's called amylogenin.
Is that included in the 16, or is that 16 plus 1?
It's included in.
So you look at the sex marker, and then you look at 16 locations, is that right?
The sex marker plus 15 others.
I see. And if you look at location 1, whatever that may be,
Again, compare this with the so-called DNA expert in the Zachariah Anderson case. It's night and day. She explains what they are looking for within the DNA. She explains this is the marker for this, plus 15 others. Never explained in the Anderson case.
Nope. Just it's my opinion that this is absolutely his blood.
Yeah. And the question from Gravely was, can you, with a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, say that the DNA belonged to Gutierrez? Yes. No explanation whatsoever.
No predicates, no nothing to indicate why she came to that conclusion, just that she did.
Yeah, it could. Is it reasonable to believe by the three you compared with that this one was closest to Mr. Guterres? Yes, we don't know. It could have been 2 markers equal. It could have been 5. It could have been 1. It could have been. We don't know because it was never entered into evidence or testified to. We simply don't know, and that is what make it so shady. Because if it was strong DNA evidence, they would have hammered it. It's 1 in a quintillion that it was somebody else. It's 1 in a 300 trillion that it was somebody else. That's the testimony here when it's strong DNA evidence.
Right.
You heard nothing about that in the Zachariah Anderson trial.
I named the picture Jodi's legs. I think it's actually just called legs, but it's from Jodi Arias. It's a prison art, so I named it Jodi's legs. And for this witness to literally be named Jodi Leg is amazing.
Sweden likes both. We celebrate outdoors with a whole lot of bunch of people. Then we go home, have some kind of dinner with family, and then it's drinking.
All Swedish holidays revolve around drinking.
And you get the results. Are the results numerical? Can they be numerical?
They can be numerical.
So when there's do you know what a profile is?
Yes, a profile would be the compilation of the numbers attributed to the peaks.
And so you look at, for example, the 15, do you know what the word loci is? What is that?
Locations on the chromosome.
And so you look at these locations, and then you get one number, or what is it that you get?
You can get 1 or 2 numbers if it's a single individual. Each of us, like I said, we get the DNA from our parents, 1 from our mother and 1 from our father. So if your mother and father have the same, you may have 1 peak, but otherwise you can have 2 peaks. So single profile, you'll have no more than 2. A mixture of more than 3, you would have 3 or more.
Let's say that the contribution from the mother is
Why wasn't that explained in Zach's
the contribution from the father?
Exactly.
You still report both locations, though, right?
Correct, but you'd only see a single peak.
Right, and it's still the same number, but it's still you do report the 2 locations.
That's correct.
So that if you get a full profile at each location has 2 readings, correct? 2 numbers.
2 numbers associated with it.
1 associated with mom and 1 associated with the dad, right?
Correct.
And this profile or these numbers are then compared to the other profiles to see if there's a match, right?
That's correct.
And so what we're talking about is a matching of numbers.
Exactly.
And if, for example, at one of the areas, one of the loci, there is not a match, let's say that instead of a 12 and 12, and everything else matches, you have a 12 and 13, is that a match, sort of a match, or not at all?
It depends on if there's any other information available in the graphical representation.
How about if you get 2 of them that are not the same? 12 and 12 and 1, and the person that you're looking at is a 12 and a 13, and the other place is a 13 and 13, and the result is a 13 and a 14. Do you know what exclusion is?
If there is no other numbers or peaks present and a known sample is, say, a 12, 13, and then your graphical representation in the numbers was, say, a 13, 14, then it would be a no match. The person would be excluded.
In real life, I mean, obviously we don't get a situation where you could always get one pristine sample of the unknown, and then because people are always touching things and that sort of thing. What's that called? What happens if more than one person touches it, say 2 people?
You would end up with what's known as a mixture of DNA.
Even though it's a mixture, are you then able to still tell whether or not it's a match to 1 person, 2 people? Can you still do that?
Yes, you can.
In this case, how many known samples were submitted to you for comparison? The names, if you will. Do you
I
have
had 2 samples submitted.
well, no, not samples, but known. In other words, do you know what buccal swab is?
2 buccal swabs were
So-
submitted.
So only 2 buccal swabs of known people were submitted?
Correct.
Nobody. Okay. Who were they on?
One was of Jodi Arias and one was of Travis Alexander.
And with regard to Jodi Arias, did you develop this profile?
Yes.
And with regard to Mr. Alexander, did you develop this profile?
Yes.
Did you look at the profiles between the 2 of them to see if they matched each other?
They did not match each other.
So far, so good, right?
Yes.
And in terms of the crime scene, did you receive a item that was purportedly near a wall? Item 77 is what it was. For you to take a look at and submit it and check to see whether or not there was any DNA and whether or not you could develop a profile.
I pushed the Midsummer Stream 10 minutes ahead because this is really interesting and I want to finish off with a bit of a discussion about it. Just so you know, Midsummer Stream is still going forward. I just pushed it ahead a bit. So it's I have a few minutes to prepare for my next stream. Okay.
Profile.
I received a swab from the wall.
All right. And were you able to develop a profile? First of all, was there any biological substances there?
There was biological substance in that a profile was developed.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the last part of my hearing.
A profile was developed.
Okay. And that profile, tell me about that profile.
It was a mixture of DNA.
And this mixture of DNA, this mixture profile, were you then able to compare it, for example, to Travis Alexander's profile?
Yes.
And when you did that, what were the results?
The mixture turned out to be the major contributor to
Let me stop you there. What do you mean when you say major contributor?
When you have a mixture of DNA, we were talking about earlier that you can have a graphical representation with peaks. You can look at it and see which peaks are larger. You're able to determine who gave more DNA to the profile than another. So a major profile can be picked out.
Right.
That major profile matched Jodi Arias.
Okay.
The remaining, what we would call a minor profile, the lesser contributor, matched Travis Alexander.
All right. So what does it mean that a person's a major contributor in terms of the quantity, I guess, of DNA, since we're talking major and minor?
The quantity you would assume that the quantity was higher because the peaks are larger for that contribution.
But was there a result at every one of the loci for Travis Alexander?
No.
So what does that mean that there wasn't a result at all of the loci?
It just means that there was not enough DNA present to develop a full profile.
Was there a full profile, enough DNA from Jodi Arias to have a full, if you will, profile?
No.
And so there was not a full profile for him, not a full profile for her, correct?
That's correct.
But even though that's there, were there any exclusions? In other words, could Jodi Arias be excluded?
No.
Could Mr. Alexander be excluded?
No.
So what is your opinion? I guess that's.
My opinion is that both of them were present in the profile.
And the biological substance that was submitted, was it blood or do you know?
I don't know.
You just know that it's some
It's a biological material.
How about with regard to the hair? Did you have anything to do with the root of a hair?
There was 2 pieces of hair that were submitted.
Okay.
One of the pieces contained a root, and the second piece was further up on the hair. So a hair, I believe it was a length of hair that was cut with one portion containing a root, and then the next portion was that piece right adjacent to it.
With regard to this hair, do you know whether or not it was item number 6 from the scene?
I don't know. We have property ID numbers that I deal with in the lab that are different than the item numbers at the scene.
Do you have any description on your report that indicates what number they may have been at the scene?
It would have been a 39 something. Can I refer to my
Sure,
report? I
please,
can
go
give
ahead.
you
Sure. If I can have-
two. So it's just that one. I'm so sorry.
I am muted. I am ordering my law cards, not my law cards. I am ordering law cards of various other individuals who have law cards.
Yeah, you can order law cards. I saw the link.
That would be item number 392692-A.
But you don't know what item number it was out at the scene then?
I do not, I'm sorry.
But you did do a hair, right?
Yes.
And in terms of the actual hair part, not the root, were you able to get a result?
Not the root?
Not the root.
Okay, the hair was cut into 2 sections. So the part that did not contain the root, there was a profile developed that matched Travis Alexander. The portion of the hair that did contain the root matched to Jodi Arias.
So explain to me
Yeah,
what we
it's
have.
amazing, right? Experts with integrity.
Mr. Alexander, what are we talking about there?
There was biological material on top of the hair. With a hair and DNA analysis, you need a root material to do what's known as nuclear DNA. Our DNA is housed in the nucleus of the cells. And so for hair, if I pull my hair out and the root is present on the end of it, I can get a DNA profile from that root material, from that end only. If I go further up into the hair, and just take, a broken off piece that's just the shaft of the hair, there is no nuclei in
No,
that.
we got to
And
select the
so
singles. I
the
didn't
two
order
different
specific
sections are
cards.
cut to say, okay, the root comes
Oh, I didn't
from
know
this
you could do
particular,
that. Okay.
donor of a profile. And the next area of it, I can tell who does the substrate or the substance on top of the hair belong to?
So the substance on top of this hair that you examined, the profile matched who?
Travis Alexander.
How about the root? Who did that match?
The root matched Jodi Arias.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
It's
Cross-examination.
www.getlawcards.com/Niklas.
Any questions from the jury for this witness?
And those are
Mr. Mohan,
collector's
should I
cards
step in?
with
Thank you.
either favorite law tubers,
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are
random
going
law
to take the
tubers,
recess for the
or
weekend. We will see you on
as-
Monday, 10:30 a.m. Please arrive by 10:25. Remember the admonition. Are there any questions? Have a nice weekend. You are excused.
Okay. Let's see if they have anything to say after. No, they didn't. Okay. Okay. There was nothing else on this day. We are done with day 5. David, this DNA expert, this testimony is absolutely excellent.
Yes. Explained what DNA was. Explained how it works. Explained how profiles worked, or work. Period. Explained how she was able to develop a profile for both Jodi and the defendant. Oh, I was going to show the law cards, and yeah. So no, absolutely excellent. Okay, here I'll go back home. All right. So this is where it takes you to home. You click on singles. Then you have specific individuals, but then you also have other or law streamers. And then you can click on this one and then add it to your cart. That's the one that I would like. And then you can go back and you can say, oh, I also want to get this one and add it to your cart. Anyways, so that's how you can order the specific ones. So I just wanted to show that.
Okay.
There you go.
Yep.
Someone had asked, I think Wendy asked how if we could show her how to order specific cards. There you go. So there you go, Wendy. But yeah, no, very good, competent. This is again back in the day when we had competent experts. I don't know how Cross is going to go. We'll see how Cross goes. She got into the, even explaining how you develop a profile. I don't know. It was just very good all around.
Yeah. Generally,
and was not afraid to say, I don't know if it's blood. I don't know. I'm just developing a profile.
Yeah, not stretching in everything possible to say by this conclusion, by my opinion, by this and that, stretching everything around. Just, I don't know. That's integrity.
Yeah, she said it several times. I simply don't know. And then the last expert we had too with the crime scene investigator, or not the last, I don't know if it was an expert, with the blood, well, how did the blood get on the wall? Very speculative question. And the witness was like, I don't know. It was either this or that. I don't know. So very good experts in this case. They weren't pulling any shenanigans.
Yeah, even if at times the prosecution tried to get stretch it a bit, the expert, nope. Here's my expertise. I'm staying within my area of expertise. I will not speculate. And and that was what I was discussing in an earlier stream as well. How from the OJ trial, which was a complete clusterfuck, and then the next 25, 30 years or 25 years, you saw, okay, a vast improvement, but then it peaked. And now we are into judges who allows in completely irrelevant things like in the Murdoch trial.
Yep.
Prosecutions who right out lie, as in the Zachariah Anderson trial. And then you have the trial that you covered not long ago, where the prosecution went totally off the rails in their rebuttal closing argument.
Oh, Megan Imowitz.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were completely off script, off evidence, attacked the defendant's mother personally. And all kinds of stuff. And but the problem is they still get convictions.
Yeah. And that is a dangerous development because they know they get convictions anyway. And that is, we have to get the prosecution to a higher standard. And by that, you have to have a better informed jury. And I think that is what we in the LawTube segment are almost trying to do by covering these trials and point these things out.
Exactly. Speaking of trying to get some better results, I will plug a little bit. So Solomon, Chandler, Jeff from Legal Vices, and myself are doing a stream on Friday. I don't know if it's a dual stream yet. Right now, I have it up on mine. I think it's just going to be on mine. So go check it out. Hit the notification Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to give you guys a little bit of a Zachariah Anderson update and sort of a call to action. So everyone should hopefully participate. And if not, if you can't watch it live, spread it around and see what we can do for Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, there's been a lot of interesting development, but I won't give out any spoilers, but it has been in the Facebook group, there has been very interesting developments. And he froze. David froze.
Oh, am I back now? Why did I freeze?
Now you're back. Now you're back.
Okay. Yeah. We want to do a kind of press release style. So that was the idea. So yeah, check that out next Friday at so that's the 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, 8 p.m. Eastern. So.
Yeah, and I have gotten so you're redirected to my midsummer stream, and that will begin a few minutes late because I have some stuff to prepare. I may or may not change my outfit and stuff like that. And yeah, have a break, have a bite, and so I can prepare for that. So that will begin in 8 minutes. If something like that.
You got to move quickly.
Yeah, but thank you all for showing up today. It's been a blast, and we are entering day 6 on Tuesday.
This could be exciting.
That could be interesting. That could be really interesting. Just saying. And again, for you who wanted hints, what the hell are we talking about when we are saying, how come you don't notice? Why doesn't they talk about it more? Why doesn't anyone talk about the tiny, tiny changes we do? And the hint is...
We'll see if it helps at all.
We'll see if it helps. But again, thank you all for showing up. I'm going to leave you with our trailer, and then you will be sent off to the next one. Okay. Thank you all for showing up. Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.